to our regular meeting for June 4th, 2014. Call this meeting to order and ask that you all rise and join in the singing of our national anthem. All right, thank you, and ask the director to proceed with roll call.
Trustee Buckman.
Present.
Trustee Kartner.
Present.
Trustee Garrow.
Present.
Trustee McPherson. Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Vice Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee McCray.
Present.
Chair Petersma.
Present.
Trustee Swan.
Present.
And Student Trustee Tyler Harbers is not with us.
Missed one.
Oh. Trustee Richards, I checked you off. You're here.
I'm here.
Nice to see you, Susan. 5 years ago, Trustee Richardson.
Pardon?
For 5 years, it was Trustee Richardson.
Yes.
I'm chair, okay?
That's all right.
You're done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Consent agenda item. You have a motion to approve. Trustee McMillan. Trustee Kartner. Go ahead and cast your votes. In the dark. Pass. Oh, okay. I see. That's fine. All right, that passes. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Motion to move into committee of the whole. Trustee McPherson, Trustee Richards. Okay, that passes. Okay, our first item this evening is presentation from the Executive Director of the Upper Canada Learning Centre. And pleased to have come to the table, Mr. Mills. Mr. Mills, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair Petersma, Board of Trustees, senior team. You're probably wondering who all of our visitors are in the back. Before I start my presentation, I want to introduce some special guests from China and some staff who have made their visit absolutely fantastic, including homestay staff and school staff. We have 25 grade 6 students from Suzhou International Foreign Language School in Suzhou, China. They are also accompanied by 5 teachers. They have been here since mid-March, right after March break, and they will leave for home next Friday. They are placed in 4 schools, 3 in Cornwall, Viscount Alexander, Amherst Corners, and Central Public, and in Brockville, 1 school, Westminster. The students are placed with a local family, so they live with the homestay, and they are in a total immersion program integrated into grade 5 and grade 6 classrooms, taking part in the regular curriculum with Upper Canada students. We are working really closely with our partners to encourage students to come at a younger age. So the way this came about, we talked to our partners in Suzhou in November. It would be really nice if the students came when they were a little bit younger, get used to the culture and the language. Well, by January, we had a list of 42 students that were interested to come to attend Upper Canada schools. In the end, 25 have come. I want to acknowledge first the Suzhou teachers. So if the teachers from Suzhou could stand up. There are 5 teachers. They're English teachers. It's a great K-12 school with 2,500 students. They've come here to learn about their curriculum, our classrooms, and to also improve their language skills and to see a lot of the area. I talked to them before the meeting, and they've had an opportunity to go to Ottawa, Toronto, Niagara Falls. And the one thing that sticks out about their visit is how welcoming our communities have been, how wonderful the hosts have been, and how great the teachers and the support staff and the principals have been in our schools to make their visit amazing. So thank you. You can sit down. I also want to acknowledge Canada Homestay, who assisted. You can imagine the trust that the parents and school in China put in us. They've come 10,000 kilometers across many time zones to live in our hosts, in our homes. And so we have some Canada Homestay staff here. If you could just stand to be acknowledged. And actually today we're meeting with Canada Homestay. We have, which I'll talk about in my report later, about 300 students in high school next year, international students, and we're working really hard to get them placed in homestays and into our schools. Why are we doing this? It's added tremendously to our schools in terms of cultural awareness, and it's reciprocal. It helps for our students, and it certainly is helping for the Suzhou students. And one of the teachers said earlier, I really don't like your winter, but I don't want to go home. So that really kind of said it all.
I don't like the winter either.
So we have a presentation to the students, a certificate diploma. I know there's on behalf of the board as well. Prior to my official presentation on the update for international ed, if I would certainly entertain a few questions or comments.
Trustees? Trustee McPherson?
I take it this is not an exchange program. This is a, our students do not necessarily go back.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. There's always a yet, thank you.
It would be great if Canadian students or students from Upper Canada studied abroad. I think it might be difficult to encourage 12-year-olds to go, but we're certainly looking at it seriously to do exchange within the high schools.
Well, we couldn't give up our Canadian winter.
Through you, Chair.
Yeah, I'll come to you in a second. Trustee Swan. Trustee Carpenter?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to congratulate your staff and all of the folks who organize the events for these students and places for them to stay. I'm very impressed how quiet the students are in here tonight after I heard what you had for dinner tonight. The 4 basic food groups, but we won't say just out loud what it was. But welcome to this boardroom. We're very pleased to have you with us at this time, so thank you. No question.
Trustee Swan?
Through you, Chair. I'd like to welcome them all and thank them for coming out tonight and welcome them to Canada. I have a question for Mr. Mills. Is this a self-sustaining program financially with us sending people overseas? And and everything else involved?
Through you, Chair. Yes, it is. It is. We certainly generate revenue. There are expenses, but there is no cost to the board.
Trustee
Thank you.
McAllister?
I too would like to welcome the teachers from China as well as the students and the homestay people, because you people are critical in this puzzle, this picture, so welcome to you all. I have a question for you, Principal Mills, with regard to the international education strategy. What is our comprehensive international education strategy?
Through you, Chair. When I do my presentation, after we acknowledge, we're going to acknowledge the students with a diploma and gift,
Okay.
I will speak about that,
All right.
and that'll be at the end of my presentation.
All right.
Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. Mr. Mills, we have had a relationship with Suzhou for some time. Do any of the students have siblings who have been here previously?
That is a very good question. You also have to remember, through you, Chair, Trustee McDonald, the one-child policy in China, but it is possible. Anybody have a brother or sister or relative that's come to China, or from China to Canada?
Yes.
4% of the students. 1 out of 25.
So having that information, with those students being here for grade 5 and 6, do they have an opportunity then to come back later on?
That is part of the strategy I will speak to in the presentation. But having students here on short stay, and we've had a number this year, it's part of our marketing and recruitment strategy to have schools and partners and agents abroad learn about our school system and our schools and our communities, and then send students for a full semester and full year in high school.
Just one follow-up. So we have had a fairly decent history with high school students, and we've had a number of short stays. Typically, short stays were a couple of weeks, perhaps a month at a time. This one seems to be a little bit longer. Are there any challenges in particular from a homestay standpoint? A, because of the age, and B, because of the duration?
Well, through you, Chair, every source country, so in this case, we've had students short stay Spain, Colombia, and China this year. Every country poses certainly challenges and opportunities, things we do not foresee. The challenges really are that the program has grown so much that we are now getting close to our limit in terms of the number of homestay families that we have. At a younger age, which is interesting, the students from China, from Suzhou, live in the dorm. All of them live at the school. They might go home every 2 weeks or so. So the incidence of homesickness and being away from China has not been as large as the students that we had from Colombia, who it's very, very family oriented as well, and they go home every night, and it was quite difficult.
Just one final. So I want to say I, I've had the pleasure of being at Suzhou many years ago. And it was a beautiful school. Had an opportunity to meet several staff and students at the time. So it's nice that we're expanding that relationship. It's nice that we're looking at some of the younger students. So I'm hopeful and I'm glad that the students and the staff that have been here have enjoyed their stay, and being a trustee for the City of Cornwall, having many of them at 3 of the schools within the City of Cornwall, I've received positive feedback from staff and students in those schools as well. So they've not only have these students enjoyed themselves, our staff and our students in our schools have enjoyed themselves, and certainly have gained a richer experience because of it. So thank you to you, and thank you to the staff, and we hope to see many of these young faces back in the future.
Thank you.
Chair Petersma?
Yeah, just 1 second, Trustee Garrow. I'll come to you. Trustee Buckland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I say welcome to the students and the teachers and the home givers as well. You mentioned the Chinese students. Could you list some of the other countries that we've had contact with students in this potentially wonderfully diverse cultural experience?
The source countries where students have come from.
Yes.
South America, including Chile, Colombia, and Brazil. Germany, Spain, Turkey, China, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Mexico. During my formal presentation, you'll see a list there in terms of the marketing and recruitment as well.
Great. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Trustee Garrow?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Tim, congratulations on this, and I was just wondering if you have made contact with Mohawk Council of Akwesasne. We've been really working well with NAVCAN, with the Saskatchewan people who have been there for the last couple of weeks because of the flooding up north. But if you wish, I could talk to you tomorrow about maybe trying to make arrangements for some of our leadership, or even having a visit over to Akwesasne.
Through you, Chair, that would be great. Trustee Garrow, thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee McAllister?
Tim, could you comment on the language proficiency of this particular group of students?
Maybe you should ask one of them. Through you, Chair. We've been pleasantly surprised. When we were over visiting the school, they start teaching English to the students at a very young age. In fact, the 5 teachers behind me are all English teachers. It'd be similar to an FSL teacher, second language here, first language English, but they teach French. I was in a parent meeting over in Suzhou in March, and there was a sign on the side that said, "English is a bridge to the world." And 150 parents there to listen about what it was like to come to Canada and the possibility when it was all to learn English. The students have been extremely successful in their placements in all of the schools, being able to take part in the regular curriculum. It has helped that we've had 5 teachers there for clarification at times, but for the most part, a total immersion experience within the homestay, the schools, and in fact, half the students are taking part in after-school programs with the Boys and Girls Club in Cornwall. With many schools are feeding the after-school program, and the feedback we've got from the hosts, from the teachers and principals has been all positive about their language skills. Principal Ray Westendorp from Westminster is here. I encourage you maybe to get some feedback from him as well later, if you'd like. It's been all positive.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Chair.
Go ahead, Trustee Swan.
Are these students in grade 6 exempt for EQAO testing then, and under what criteria would that be, if so?
No, they are not taking part. They're short stay students who are not registered on our roll, so they do not take part in the EQAO testing. Through you, Chair.
Trustee McPherson?
Through Chair, I just gotta ask this question. I see you've exposed some Canadian culture. This spring, did you make sure that they got to taste maple syrup? I see some nods back
Through you, Chair. If they're nodding, that means yes.
Well, seeing as I'm from Lanark County and that's maple syrup capital of Ontario, it's a question I had to ask.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee McMillan?
Through you, Chair. Tim, I want to thank you for everything you do in this program, and I too want to say thanks to our students. You know, the experience of our own students being with you is immeasurable. There's no way we can even look at the gains that they'd have, but having all of the students come from various parts of the world, what it does is it makes our world that much smaller, and we realize we're all in this together, and I thank you so much for being here. It's really important to us. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Mr. Mills, for bringing us your visitors this evening. And I understand we're going to
We have some
gifts, and then yes.
So Matt Raby from the manager of programs for UCLC, he will call out the names, and you can give the gift at the same time as we give the certificate, and I'll go quickly.
Okay.
Kitty. Kitty, come on up.
Come on, reduce. You have a gift. Thank you for coming.
Go up that way and then.
Kevin.
Congratulations, thank you.
Ken. Cindy.
This is for you.
Cindy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Good for you.
Mickey.
Congratulations.
Very good.
Sherry.
Congratulations.
I wish they did do something to check that teeth and check blood pressure or something. The area.
Annie. Simon.
may not come back and stay. It was kind of fun having an audience.
We can make arrangements next week.
All right, Mr. Mills, you want to proceed with the rest of your presentation?
Thank you very much, Chair. As a follow-up to our visitors, I want to provide an international education update. The program itself for international education provides many benefits to our school communities. Certainly it follows and is aligned with many aspects of our Credo and our Character Always initiatives, which you just saw. The Upper Canada Leger Centre has been recruiting international students on behalf of the Upper Canada District School Board for 10 years. Significant growth in our short stay and our full semester and full year students has occurred in the last 3 years. With the reorganization of the school board at the senior level, it's an opportunity for us to find meaningful global perspective that will be promoted through an increasing number of international students in our schools. What are the implications of international ed? It certainly promotes cultural awareness. It helps build our reputation as a world-class organization. In a time of declining enrollment, certainly it can counter some and help sustain enrollments. And it also provides an economic benefit to the communities that our schools serve and employs many staff. Tonight, I want to give you an overview of the marketing and recruitment initiatives that UCLC has undertaken on behalf of UCDSB. Enrollment trends over the past 5 years. Highlight some events that have happened this year to make the program, grow the program and make it better. Some of the challenges and opportunities, and the special guests were at the beginning instead of the end. At the end, I'll also speak about the strategy as we move forward. We have attended a number of agent and student fairs in source countries, and a question earlier about the source countries for where students are coming from to attend our schools. Certainly Mexico, presence in South America, Brazil, Chile, Peru, and Colombia. In Asia, China, Korea, and Mongolia. Taiwan's one that's not there. And then in Europe, France, Spain, Germany, and Turkey. I also want to highlight 3 school partnerships. One, Suzhou, which is our biggest partner, provides around 100 students per year. Harbin's a new program in northeast China where we're going to have around 20 students. And Zhengzhou is in central China, and the last 3 years we've had anywhere from 15 to 20 students from that school. Also, in terms of our marketing and recruitment, we have an employee that works for UCLC that is based in Beijing. Any inquiries we get related to China outside of our school partnerships go through our Beijing office, and the employee can react right away, and also in Mandarin, native language. We have government-sponsored programs right now. You may remember the Win the World program. We had 10 students 2 years ago. It's from northern Brazil. 30 students last year, and we expect 50 students from that program in the fall from Brazil. So in terms of diversification of the program, we had 4 students from Chile and 30 students from Spain on short stay. And that's all government-sponsored programs. And that seems to be where many countries are going. They want to sponsor students to come so it levels the playing field in their country. So it's not about rich families or students with means that can come to Canada to study. Lastly, we're working very hard on website management, social media, and we have brochures translated in every language that we market in. Here's an update on our enrollment. We have 130 short-term students this year in 16 elementary schools and 267 full semester or full year students in 20 high schools. I'm going to show the data briefly on schools, but it also surprised me when I realized that international education, whether it's one student or in some cases over 40 students full-time, are in 20 of our high schools. We're almost touching every school now, and certainly our goal is to grow it in every school. Our short-term students, from the bottom up there, you just saw the students from China, grade 6. We had about 60 students from Colombia, grade 6 to 10. They're from private schools. And we had 30 students from Spain for the month of September, who were high school age. This is in your package. I'm just going to show it briefly. And this is the data we've collated: the country of origin by high school, the total number of students in first and second semester, and then the far right is the total number of students. So for example, in Elmont, we have 4 students full-time. And then at the other end, in terms of the numbers at BCI, we have 42. The high schools are listed in alphabetical order. Again, they're in your package. This slide explains the enrollment trend for the last 5 years. And while you might see an up and down in 2 of them, it's a good news story. In blue are the total number of short-term students, and it shows the 5-year trend from 2010-11, and then the estimates for next year. Earlier, Trustee McDonald asked about, mentioned that we have students in there from 2 weeks, maybe up to 2 months. We now only take students for 1 month to 3 months. It's easier on our, easier for short homestays. They want the experience to be longer. We also use that as a marketing and recruitment tool for agents, source countries, and even schools abroad to get a taste. Once we peaked last year, we realized that really we wanted to increase the long stay market. So the red line, in 2010-11, we had 80 international students, full semester or full year. This year, 267, and we're projecting over 300 for next year. So the increase in the middle in short stay that came back down was replaced by long stay, full semester and full year students, which is positive. And then the total number of students, short stay and long stay, is the green line, and it tracks up. It goes down a little bit this year because we focused more on long-term students rather than short stay. And then we anticipate leveling off. We're comfortable with the number of short stay students we had this year. We think we can manage that along, so that's why it increases. Some good news stories throughout the year and how we're trying to support the students. The Friday before school started this year, we brought as many international students as we could who were already here from all regions of the board to TIS, and we had an all-board orientation for the international students, going over many things, including homestay, what to expect in the schools, the communities, how they can access support. For example, students also need medical insurance if something was to happen there, how to contact us, and special things that were going on. And it was more just to welcome them, but also to make them aware of the many supports that we have in place in our schools. AYP stands for Academic Year Program, and that's an acronym that's used in international education all the time. Some of you may have been at a meeting in October where the international students all congregated at the board office. It started to rain. They came and said there were 160 international students, 4 buses that went to Toronto in October for a trip to go to the Eaton Centre, shopping, see some of the sites in Toronto, stop at Canada's Wonderland, and come home. The great thing about the region we live in, not only all of the activities that are going on within our communities, but are around our communities. We attract the short-term groups because of our great communities, awesome schools, but also our proximity to Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto and Niagara Falls. That makes it in demand. Increasingly, international students are adding to school spirit. Principals are sending us pictures of, and teachers of how they're integrating, and of course with our push towards social media, there are many pictures now on Facebook, pushed out on Twitter, and on school websites. Recently, I attended two student fairs, one in the city of Brockville. It was an international student cultural fair, and those are some of our international students that took part in that. Last week, also, St. Lawrence Secondary School had a multicultural fair that they have every year. And UCLC and Canada Homestay sponsored that event, and the whole mall, the whole front area of St. Lawrence was full of students that were doing presentations on multiculturalism, including international students. And many of our students come to graduate. So these are pictures obviously from last year, but in the next few weeks we'll have a number of students graduate, walk across the stage. A majority of the students who come from China will stay for 2 or 3 years and then graduate and go on to college and university. And so while we think it's a 2-year investment with Upper Canada, for many students it's a 5, 6, 7 year, or they're going to stay in Canada and work and become residents. Now the challenges. Talked about homestay capacity, and right now we have about 450 hosts in the database. With 300 students, you need extra hosts. So we're working to develop a comprehensive strategy to encourage communities to get homestays. In terms of student supports in the school, ESL programming, program pathways, starting with the students at the beginning and looking at the end, and then providing the appropriate program for them. And school and community supports, and let me just address one particular item that I know there's been much talk around this table about mental health. And mental health exists just as much in an international student population as it does in regular student population. And really there are students. We see international students as our students, as part of our community. And we've had some cases this year where we've had to engage community supports, and we need to look at that more closely. Staff support in terms of professional learning. We've been focused on getting a lot of things done in the last few years to recruit the students. And really, what comes first? Do you provide the supports? You're not really sure what you need sometimes until you have the students. And we're looking at some professional learning for support staff and staff, how to be, our schools are very welcoming, but being precise and specific about how to be a welcoming school for an international student, and how to provide sort of the total 360 for the student to get them across the line. And the last one is diversification of students. And what I mean by that is we want a real balanced enrollment in international education with source countries. So it would be ideal if we had 20, 25 countries up there with a number of students from each of those countries. Program offerings refers to the fact we are in declining enrollment, and we want to offer what the students want to take, but at the same time there are limitations on that, so we need to plan appropriately for program offerings for students as well, because many are staying to go to college and university. The opportunities, there was a question earlier about exchange from a trustee. Student and teacher exchanges are something we're looking at very closely. We are in the process of a letter of intent with a school district in France to look at teacher exchanges. We have many inquiries from our Chinese partners that as far as teacher as well as students, teachers and students from Upper Canada going abroad. Offshore schools, the last time I did a presentation at the board table last year, I mentioned the moratorium. Since 2005, there's been a moratorium placed on us opening schools abroad as of school board or offering credits abroad. We get inquiries all the time from our Chinese partners. I've had some from Turkey, Spain, and definitely in South America for sure, looking for partner schools. And at this point, the moratorium is not lifted, but I would see that as an opportunity because we have the province of British Columbia, Alberta, and Nova Scotia that are working offshore, developing school programs all the time. The last opportunity I put up, in a neighboring board, they have an international certificate program. So while we have specialist high schools major, an idea might be to have an international certificate program where students take certain courses, but they also would earn it for maybe hosting another international student, learning a third language, doing certain things within the community related to international education. And this will also address an earlier question related to an international education strategy for Upper Canada. At this point, we do not have one that's comprehensive. We've been busy getting things done to get the students in, but there are a number of things we need to work on and look at. One is a comprehensive look at homestay, not only homestay in people's home communities and homes, but also whether we want to investigate dormitories. We need to look at professional development of staff, and we need to look at what the numbers are. How many students do we want, and how many can we get to? Last week, I traveled with Director Thomas and Superintendent Edwards to Victoria, where we had our annual conference for Canadian Association of Public Schools. And we had an opportunity to visit the Victoria International Program, to meet also their superintendent, who is the director, and talk about their strategy. Then we went to, at the conference, there are 100 school districts now that are part of that organization, 75 who were there. And the network we have there and the opportunity to learn from those who've come before us and to help those that are coming behind us is great. I'd like to finish by telling you that the outlook for international education is amazing. And while I might be passionate about it, I'm not the only one. You saw the people behind me earlier tonight. They work extremely hard. They're very passionate about what they do. And there's a certain competitiveness to international education, and in fact, maybe some entrepreneurialism. But that doesn't mean we're competing to take students. We're competing to make it the best possible experience for students. And we're competing certainly to get students, but to get them across the line so that they'll just be great global citizens, and it really helps our own students too. People ask me all the time why we do this. The evidence, I've given you many reasons, but the reason was in the back. There's the 25 students when they got here from Suzhou with staff. We hosted an orientation for them. But I'll end with my favorite picture. So that's at the beginning, and the students have had a fabulous experience, but so has the staff. And what better way to showcase the board than to host international students and give the experience to our students and staff as well.
There you go.
Okay, are you done?
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Mr. McMillan, Tristan McMillan.
Through you, Chair. I have 2 questions, if I may.
Yep.
The first question, Tim, there's no question this is an amazing program. You just have to, for me on a local level, I just have to walk into BCI or Thousand Islands and look at the faces of these kids interacting in that school to know just the direct advantage we're having here. Near the end of the presentation, you talked about competition. How competitive market is this in terms of school boards and school boards around us? And if so, how do we deal with that?
If you want to go to a large city, You know, they say bigger is better, but smaller is beautiful.
Yeah.
So the city of Ottawa, or Ottawa Carleton, has 520 full-time international students. They're 3 times our size in terms of enrollment. Limestone has maybe 150, Hastings, Prince Edward 140. But the market for international students is much bigger than probably what anybody in Ontario now is prepared to accommodate. So while it is competitive, we're all helping one another. If I have a question, I'm asking someone, it could be from BC, who's gone before me, it could be talking to the executive director of OCNet that runs the program in Ottawa. I pick up the phone and talk to them. We're helping one another. Because really, if you want to go to the capital city of Ottawa, you are going to go to the capital city of Ottawa. If you want to go to see the Rocky Mountains on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other, you're probably going to go to Vancouver. But there are many students who say they want to come to central Canada, be near the capital city, but not in the capital city, but be in smaller cities and towns that have exactly what Upper Canada has. As far as the numbers go, the federal government put out a study in January that there are about 240,000 international students in Canada right now, K to post-secondary. They have a goal to almost double that in the next 8 years. And the number of students that want to come from other countries, there's almost a waiting list to get in. It's to accommodate those and to get out and have a comprehensive strategy. And I want to talk about the comprehensive strategy, that we need to take a look at that, and we need to be precise, engage people from the outside to come in and take a look, and also engage people at all levels within our organization at UCLC, the school board, and our communities to get that done. And I'm not going to apologize for the fact that we have maybe 300 students next year without a comprehensive strategy. But if we don't have a comprehensive strategy in place and start to address some of our challenges, then we will have some difficulty.
Go ahead.
And just before I go on to the second question, I think you said something earlier that I think is really critical. It's nice to have a competition to get the kids here, but the bottom line is we want to provide these international students with the best possible educational experience they can have in Canada, and I like that. The second question, and I think I've asked this one prior, in prior years when you were in, when these international students are coming to us and they're basically being immersed in our culture. However, they come with their own cultural values. Every once in a while we find a clash where, because of our lack of understanding of what they value in terms of their culture, may create a conflict situation. What are we doing with our staff and people that work with these kids to overcome that? Because part of it might be just awareness.
Through you, Chair. So for each student that is enrolled in a Upper Canada school, we provide a comprehensive package. We go through guidance. If there is an issue or something that comes up, they know who to contact directly for assistance. Canada Homestay, who is here, have staff that are able to speak Mandarin, for example, or Spanish, so we might have to engage them if we're dealing with the agent abroad, but also the parents. But we need to do more. So part of that is we need to get more things in place, both on the social side and the academic side, in case things come up. But we would deal with any situation with an international student in the same way that we would with any student that has difficulty. You would want to get down to the core of it and find out all of the reasons why, and then try to put the supports in place. If I could give a particular example, last week we had a student who was in crisis a little bit related to mental health. I was contacted immediately. The homestay coordinator worked closely with the school. We had school board psych services support there, and we also had community support to do an assessment. And along with the community support, the students all come with, they have to have insurance. Part of that insurance is not only related to physical health, but there's coverage for mental health as well. So we might have to engage school support and community support, along with the homestay family and the agent abroad, all working together. Or, you know, in some cases, it's 7:30 in the morning in China tomorrow. So,
Thank you very much.
Trustee Carpenter, please.
I have
Trustee
a couple of
Carpenter.
questions, but my first question through you, Chair. Tim, you brought in a guest one night from France.
yes.
Did that go anywhere as far as students?
Through you, Chair. Last 2 weeks ago, I was in France, in Lyon for 4 days with Christian Caron, who's the Director of International Affairs for the Académie Lyon, or it's a large school district in central France. I have a letter of intent here that includes many different things that we're looking at in terms of student exchange and teacher exchange, and we're actively pursuing that. So yes, we are.
Second question?
Yep.
In your presentation, you didn't provide us with any financials from this program. Are you able to provide that to us or someone or whatever?
Through you, Chair. I would certainly be able to provide that, not tonight, but
Actually, I can send them a copy of the last year's audit. It's the draft audited statements is what I have, but that's okay. I can do that right now
KPMG is doing it right now, so they're
for next year, but I have last year's.
we also have projections up till this point and projections for next year that we'd be glad to share.
Sure, if you send them to Lisa, she can put them in board docs.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair.
Yeah, just 1 second, Trustee Swan. Trustee McPherson?
Just out of curiosity, through the chair, is there a qualifying process, like, as academic, et cetera? Is there any kind of qualifying process to come on an exchange?
We have an application process where there needs to be a recommendation letter from the school. We need to have an authorized transcript. At this point, we have not put restrictions on language level, but it is part of the strategy. If a student doesn't have really good language in command of the English language skills, and they're in the senior grades, it can be challenging. We do have ESL support in 10 of our high schools where we have international students. But we're looking at we need to expand on that, conversely we need to look at maybe establishing a welcoming area. When we were in Victoria, we visited a site where 2 classrooms, about 20 students in each classroom. They spend a semester gaining credits, but also improving their language skills. So they're not doing it without credit, and it was something to see in action that we might consider in the future.
Go ahead, Trustee McPherson.
Just through the chair, just these students are English language students. Do they partake in French instruction?
If they're in elementary, the students do. In secondary, almost all of our students are coming after grade 9, and they would be granted an equivalency credit with a second language because they have one already. In a few cases with students from Latin America, we have some students that are taking French. Specifically, we had 4 students from Germany last year who requested to come here to take some immersion courses and live with a French host family.
Trustee McAllister.
Thank you, Chair. As a new trustee, at least 3 years ago or more, I didn't know very much about international education, to be honest with you. And I've since met with you, Tim, many times. And I just want to comment that I'm certainly supportive of this initiative. And if I can give some concrete examples that are local, we have 2 Reeves in Ward 4, Frank Kinsella and Roger Haley, who are very active proponents of our initiative as well as their own. which in their case is economic development. So, and I also wanted to point out that, both the Canadian government and the Canadian ministers of education in Canada strongly support this initiative and the benefits that ensue from it. So, anyway, I just wanted to wish you well and hope that it really works out
Thank you.
and grows. Thank you.
Trustee Swan?
I was just wondering, who's determining the priorities of the international education program and the direction it's taking? And do you think perhaps, through you, Chair, and Director Mills, that we need a charter for this?
Governance. Do you want to talk about the governance structure, Director?
The Upper Canada Leger Centre is a solely owned subsidiary of the Upper Canada District School Board. It is independent and it can do and move into these areas in support of the overall board and support of these issues. Tim may, through you, Chair, talk about it. Not only has the international program, it has a variety of other programs that it offers and organizes to enhance our ability to serve this community. And they have their own board of directors, and the chair of the board sits on that, and the chair of the board gives directions and is a direct liaison with the Upper Canada District School Board. And this independence allows us to move into areas that typically are not a part of the mandate of a public education system. And the next step that Tim will be taking us through will be a comprehensive look at a long-term dynamic strategy for international students.
Thank you. A secondary, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Trustee Swan.
I'm just wondering, what are we doing to look at our students having the multicultural experience in other countries? It was mentioned, but how close are we looking at even having them go to other countries on a short stay basis?
So we would have five, through you, Chair, we would have 5 to 10 Upper Canada students per year engaged in an exchange. That is not done through the board or through the Upper Canada Leger Centre. We have agencies that contact us to say that they are available to assist students. That being said, as part of the strategy, what I would envision is us engaging a small number of those study abroad agencies on behalf of the board to encourage many more students to consider it. At this point, as a country, Canadians are more apt to do exchanges when they're in college or university than they are in high school. That's not the way it is in Europe or in Asia or in South America. And I think what I'm seeing, our students are becoming more global themselves and more attached, more connected, and they can connect easily to other countries and other students. So to answer the question, we would like that to be part of our strategy so that many more students go abroad on exchanges, or not even an exchange, just to go abroad on their own.
Thank you.
Trustee McDonald.
I have a number of questions that I'll ask a few, and I'll let some others in. Mr. Mills, you highlighted your opportunities, and I think we could all probably list the strengths within Upper Canada Leisure Centre and within the Upper Canada District School Board. But from a business sense, these are opportunities, these are things that have potential. What are our weaknesses and our threats? In other words, our risks of not being able to exploit or move forward on these opportunities.
Through you, Chair.
Yeah.
If we set a goal, for example, let's say it was 700 students, and you get to that, the real risk is that if you don't have all of the supports in place that are necessary, and you don't have a sound marketing and recruitment strategy, and you don't have diversification, then if one of your source countries goes down, SARS, H1N1, and then all of a sudden next year, no students from China could travel to Upper Canada to go to school, that would be a threat. I'm not sure that's a threat or it's just an unlevel playing field, but another one is not being able to compete with British Columbia, Alberta, and Nova Scotia to open schools abroad, because at some point that market will mature, and right now that market is extremely, for lack of a better word, hot. It's time to go and do that, and without support from the Ministry of Education on that initiative, it is a lot more difficult for people that are in my shoes to go out and do that. The other risk I've talked about, and that is if we do not set up a more comprehensive and complete support network for students within our schools, which we really need to do, then we're putting ourselves at risk there too.
Just a follow-up to that. So when you mentioned the number 700 and the network associated to that, so when you develop your comprehensive strategy moving forward, and I think you've got some of the framework associated to it, but it's just perhaps not on paper, it sounds like. If let's use 700 students as the example, is there a clear understanding of what we need to do to be able to support 700 students? And is there a tipping point where it becomes too much? You've mentioned the diversity. I mean, obviously, if we've got a saturated market in one area, then something happens that creates a problem. So,
through you, Chair. First, the 700 number is not necessarily fixed. That's exactly what we want to strive towards.
yeah.
But what we have now in place is not what I would envision having in place to support what is required. Homestay, for example, if you have 600 students in homestay, it will require a lot more relationship managers, what we call them. It would perhaps require a line for them to call internally. Right now, there's an external line, 1-800 for support, so there's that. Getting out to talk to our communities, talk to mayors and councils and health units, getting support there so that everyone's aware. It's one thing to have 10 international students in your community, and it's another if you have 50 and it's a small community, right? So that the students are visible, and perhaps there are opportunities there, but there are challenges too. So the answer is no. We do not have in place what is required for 700. Do we know exactly what's required? No, we don't know, but we have a number of the pieces there. And one of the examples I've given is related to student success. We know as a school board, and drilling down to the school level, what is required to support a student who is at risk. If they're a student from another country, what's the difference? There are some cultural differences, there's language, but really there are students, and if we set up student success related to international education along the same models as we've done with at-risk students and student engagement, I'd see it along the same lines.
Just the final one, if I may, Mr. Chair. So, whether it's 700 or 1,500, it appears to me that the success of 300 students has been done on a shoestring budget. Been done on some marketing, promotional type material. The investment's been fairly small. In order for us to get beyond into the 700, the 1,500 type numbers, do you see a significant investment required to do that and able to A, support homestay, B, to be able to deal with some of the social aspect pieces? So, and it's significant, I mean more than just printing brochures, I guess.
The question was asked earlier if this was costing anything to the board. the answer is no. As you increase the number of students, you increase the revenue. And you would then need to align some things to provide either some different service or more service. We're looking right now at ESL support within our schools, and how we can best provide that. And we think we can do that without any more significant investment. And if it did require some more investment, we anticipate that it'll be through the international education line that comes through the tuition that the students pay.
Okay. I'll come to you in just a second, Trustee Swan. Trustee McCray.
Thank you, Chair. I know there are so many facets involved in this initiative. Tim, I'm just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit about how we are building capacity with the homestay, because that would be the critical part of all of this. Is that the people that they're staying with are actually like a family.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate on how we're developing capacity with that?
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. In fact, that's at the top of our list, really, because without having hosts, we can't have the students at this point, because we don't have another option related to dormitories. We work with Canada Homestay International closely. We have 4 what we call relationship managers that have a caseload. There is one individual that lives in Brockville that is solely trying to market and recruit within our communities. But we need to do more there. We need to be engaged more with Canada Homestay as with the school district and with our communities to advertise. I will tell you, over the last 3 years, we've put many ads in the paper, and the response to ads in the paper or open houses at schools is not that great. Getting people out for another night or putting an ad in the paper that doesn't necessarily work anymore. Where we have gotten hits is just advertising and social media. I spoke to a principal today and also sent an email with updates, and I would gladly share it with the trustees and the senior team. A write-up on what someone can do to host, and a poster, an electronic poster, with and a story as to why someone would want to host an international student. So really, it's word of mouth. We can put as many advertisements out as we want, which we need to do, and we can get at it in many ways through social media and electronically now. But really, it's when a host has a good experience and they tell their neighbor, they tell their friends. So I would certainly welcome if you go out and tell the story within your communities, and we'd be glad to go there along with Canada Homestay to do any presentation, whether it's to councils, community groups, school councils.
Go ahead.
Do you have an incentive program to try to support these people that, open their basement or?
Yeah, so host families are compensated. There is a monthly honorarium or a fee that students, as part of there's a cost for tuition, and there's a cost for homestay, which includes room and board, as well as medical insurance and pick up and drop off from the airport, and that's all included. But certainly host families are compensated for it.
Trustee Buckland?
I have no question.
Okay, sorry. Trustee Swan?
I guess my biggest concern comes back to us growing too big too quickly in this initiative. And you said there's many challenges involved in the supports, having the supports there for the host families, having the supports there for the kids, and the schools. And I'm just wondering kind of where the board of directors is going with this.
Sure.
Where we're moving right now is to have expanded conversations with boards that are fully embedded in these programs. We visited the Victoria board, and their board was similar size to us. Actually, they have fewer high schools, not the similar population. And they're approximately 1,000 students, 700 to 800 full, and about 300 to 400 part-time students each year. They said to us that growing it is the easy part, that's a quote unquote. Sustaining it is the difficult part, and what you have to have is a comprehensive look at your community and its capacity. We believe right now with, as John McAllister, Trustee McAllister said, that we have to have partners in our community that are positive about this particular journey. And so far we know that Smith Falls, Front of Young, leads 1,000 Islands, our own community where the board office is. We know that Cornwall is deeply committed to this. And we've had no one sort of come up and say, not here. But what Tim has said tonight that's critically important that we are very conscious of is we're ready in many of our schools, and with our equity and inclusion initiative that's been very, very powerful, we know that the kids are having safe places to be in our schools. What we have to determine now, as Trustee McRae was looking at, was how do we build capacity in our homestay, and how do we make sure that those people are encouraged to take students over a longer period of time. And what we have, and Tim can explain this much better than I, is that we have many kids who return to homestay, and more kids come back to parents in the community. In fact, one of our largest suppliers of homestay are our own staff, teachers, school council chairs, and people like that. And they take many kids over the course of time. One of the things we have to take a look at is to have, as Tim has spoken about, is the emergencies, the ability to, that if a family goes through some sort of crisis, that we have the ability to move a child to a different location, to a different spot for respite. Or sometimes what we've learned too is that things have been very positive in the school, but sometimes a homestay relationship breaks down, family matters, etc., and we have to move students around. This is the area that we're really starting to grow and to discover. And right now, there's been no better time than for us to examine critically where we're going to go with this and the capacity for Eastern Ontario to do this. I have been asked by the Minister of Education to sit on a round table. As you may be aware, if I may, Chair, at this time, Ontario has had a moratorium on international students for nearly 10 years. In that last 10 years, Nova Scotia, Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba have all moved significantly ahead of us. And as Trustee McAllister was referring to, this is an economic engine. In British Columbia alone, they consider this a green initiative, that it brings in the neighbor of an additional $2 billion to the British Columbia economy. And we began this journey about 10 years ago when Chair MacDonald was the chair at the time, and we're eyes wide open that we knew with declining enrollment that we had the ability to put new students, really caring, wonderful kids in our classrooms. We could maintain our schools and also at the same time maintain programs in the physics and sciences and maths that are important. But as Tim has said, one of the things we have to do as we prepare, if we were to get larger, is that the declining enrollment issues in our community and the offering of programs in our own schools is critical. I think our board has already played a very large role in asking that the moratorium be lifted, and that we recognize the potential for both the global learning for all of us. As you yourself discussed earlier, is not only us taking kids in, but encouraging our families and our students to explore the global education market. And I think what we have to really recognize is the business people in our communities have said very clearly that these kids are spending a lot of money in our community. Their families that come over to visit are also spending a lot, and it's been a win-win as we go through. Thank you.
A secondary, please?
Yeah, I can also add that sitting on the committee, sitting on the board for the last few years, a couple of years ago, we kind of took a pause and really reflected and built our the capacity inside our schools, built the relationships between UCLC and principals and ensured that we were in a position to support schools and answer those questions. So that work has already been done. I think that the realistic approach is that we will continue, that the opportunity is there for us to continue to grow. I think the homestay will hold us to a more organic growth than explosive growth in the short term. So I don't know that we have to be alarmed at the continued growth. I think that unless we all of a sudden decide to put in dorms or some other approach, I think that we'll be sort of held in organic growth. But that is the question you raised, Trustee Swan, is one that we constantly discuss at the board table for UCLC. So go ahead, Trustee Swan.
I guess my last question is tied into kind of a request from Executive Director Mills, is that other provinces are able to go ahead and put schools in other countries, if I understand that correctly, and we are allowed to as the province of Ontario. So is this something we should be asking or bringing to the board table?
We've had it here before, and we've sent letters, and we're on record as supporting that. We've done the exploratory work to see what's involved, and I think, Tim, and you can add to this, that once we get the green light, we can go ahead. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair. We have, for example, three main partners in China who ask us all the time, is it possible that you could offer a diploma program to us here on site? And the answer to this point has been no, but once we get the green light, the hardest thing to do is to find a partner, because we know there will be a framework put in place by the government, and we can certainly work towards that. We can work within that framework. Last week in Victoria, the director there said he had 4 schools that were looking for a partner in Spain, and he couldn't handle them all, so it's really too bad that Ontario wasn't in the game.
So can we bring this back after the election? As a trustee almost 4 years, this has never been brought to the table as far as I remember since I've been on board.
I think we did. I think we wrote a letter probably 18 months ago. But regardless, it doesn't hurt to write the letter again. And the reality is that it is a complex issue with a lot of stakeholders, including our federation partners. And how would that work? Would those teachers be union members? And if so, at what rate would they pay? Because foreign teachers don't get paid at that rate. So it's a complex issue. And although other provinces seem to handle the complexity, that's certainly what we're told as part of the issue. Director?
Trustee Swan, so you know, the committee that I was asked to be on, in fact, I told the deputy minister the person that should be on that committee is Tim Mills, and Tim will be taking my spot. They had a meeting called for May the 8th at that particular time, and there is a real appetite now to get this done, and I believe, as you have sort of alluded to, after the election, that this will become a hot issue, because it truly is. It's not just a global issue in the sense that we are going to be having kids come in. It is really considered across Canada and North America an economic engine, and we have a really good public education system, and many of the businesses are saying, let's get into this and let's dive in before we get too far behind.
The letter was sent on June 20th, 2013. A copy is available inside board docs, and it was also copied to all the area MPPs.
Thank you.
Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. I wanted to pick up, I wanted to say something, and Director Thomas has kind of alluded to it. I wanted to go back, I guess, in history and talk about what a Upper Canada Leger Center was intended to do, and we had several discussions at that time. We knew there was a declining birth rate and fewer children were going to be entering the education realm. So we needed to understand what were we going to do to keep the teachers that we had employed. What were we going to do to help offset some of our revenue difficulties by having lower students entering the education system, and then look at other opportunities that a not-for-profit agency could help us with. So tonight we're talking about the international education side of things. International education was certainly the key piece that we thought was not to be taken into context, but low-hanging fruit. It was easy enough for us to go out and get some students, and a lot of work was done to get some students, and more work has been done to get us to the level we are at. I want to just kind of emphasize that if we maintain, and I don't think the mission or the vision has changed for Upper Canada Leger Center, is that it's a not-for-profit that is wholly owned by the Upper Canada Board, and it should be helping us within the context of running a school board. We should be able to find ways to generate revenues that will help Upper Canada District School Board foster innovative things within our schools, keep teachers employed, put other enhancements within our buildings. We're doing that with the international education and other programs. But I want to make sure that we don't lose focus on what that mission was, is to increase the revenue, to increase the student base, to keep the teachers employed. Because if we don't begin to realize how we offset the number of students that we are pulling in from international education by the number of students who are leaving us and graduating, and the fewer students that are entering our system, we're not really accomplishing what we intended to do. So we need to make sure that our initiatives are in place to drive that forward, so that we maintain for what we graduate off and what we fail to have enter the education system, and then grow on that. And I think if we continue to have the model in place that we work off of the existing revenues, it will be a slow growth, and that worries me a little bit. I want to make sure that we put some vision to this to ensure that there is more of a rapid growth associated to it. I understand the risks. I understand the threats associated to that. But I think a well laid out plan will help us deal with some of those risks. And if we need investment in those types of things, then we need to make sure that we have those discussions, because from a Board of Education standpoint, if I need to spend money, $10,000 to make $100,000, that's a pretty good return on investment for me. This is one area of our board that we can tap into to help generate revenue that will help offset some of the initiatives that we have within our board. And so I think we need to make sure that we're aware of those types of things as we move forward. If we're going to move into an international location, there will be some expenses associated to that. And I think we need to be, as a board, understanding of the fact that we should be putting some seed money associated to that. Because if we rely on the revenue only, it offsets somewhere else. We're not able to do some other things. And I think we need to make sure that we look at how we deal with the risk of homestays. And so the initiative needs to be put in place that only so many people will take students in. What will be the next step for us, and potentially what the investment would be from Upper Canada Board as a seed fund to ensure that those students can have a place to come. And we would also then get the revenue associated to having those students. So I just want to make sure that we're keeping in mind that the intention was to help offset that declining birth rate. And if we don't have an equal balance of the international students, we're not really achieving what we tried to achieve.
Director?
First of all, great tour down history. Thank you, Trustee McDonald. And you may remember that in the early years, as we designed this over 10 years ago, Trustee McDonald, that one of the things we wanted to be able to do with the revenue was to deal with issues of Eastern Ontario. And our board knows that we have this magnificent, very heavy burden of a 90% graduation, 100% satisfaction And this all connects with that because we know that the number one issue we have to deal with to get the 90% is the very, very, very heavy burden of poverty. In our schools right now, and our principals would tell you this, probably the number one issue with the Michelangelo kids who are at risk is the ugliness of poverty. With the revenue, and because it's a not-for-profit, we've been reinvesting that money into our communities. We've been working with the Boys and Girls Club of Kingston for the Leeds, Grenville, Rideau area, Smith Falls, Lanark. And we've also been able to set up 6 ready for learning programs in the summer. Because one of the things we've come across with all of our research is that we know that many of our kids in poverty, that their summer is a time of decline. And what we've been able to do is offer, I believe, one of the top programs free of charge to anyone to come to. And we run it all summer long with a culminating jamboree for some of our kids. It's a very, very powerful summer activity for them, and it gives them something to talk about as you go through. We were able to do that because of revenue, but the piece that I hear you saying, and I think that the Upper Canada Leger Board will need that support, is we do have to reinvest now. This is a moment where we have to take a look and say, what does Tim and the group that's over there need in order to secure the ability to move this in a proper direction? And one of the things that we've come across, and certainly as I've been involved in this for over 10 years, is we've had very good fortune with international students. You may recall, as a board, we've had only 3 incidents that would be was setbacks. We'd say 2 we didn't handle so well because I don't think that we really understood the international students are students. And most recently, one incident with an international student, we handled that. Now, even our discipline committee and our trustees were on it in a way that said this young international students are a child. And I think that is a sign that we're moving in the right direction. But one of the things that Tim has educated me on is, as well as behaved, as Trustee Carter noted, those kids were at the back of the room, is that the 17 and 8-year-olds with us are 17 and 18-year-olds, and they're going to need to have the guidance and support. And we also know that we have to pay attention to their voice. They're telling us that they're treated really well. We heard that. But there are times when perhaps they have to speak up, and we have to give them an opportunity. And that's why we're redirecting Superintendent Edwards' assignment, and she's moving in a total different direction to deal with equity, inclusion, international education, and the voice of the international student. And David, that's the beginning of, I think, what you're saying. We just can't let this on a shoestring budget move along. But this is only stopgap. When I was watching, and I have the organizational sheet from Victoria and 2 other boards of education, it's a time for us to really think about the investment in that to have the proper return. So thank you for those wise words, and I think that will make its way to the Upper Canada Legislative Board, which will continue to keep Upper Canada informed. Thank
you. Anybody else?
Last question through you, Chair.
Go ahead, Trustee Swan.
For insurance for Upper Canada Leger, because it's an arm's length agency from the board or arm's length educational system, are they self-insured or are they insured through the board insurance?
We are self-insured.
Did you hear that, Trustee Swan?
Through you, Chair, we are self-insured.
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Also, if I can add to that, it's supplemental insurance for international students. We work with a company called Guard Me Now. We're going to be working with a company called Ingle. And the students are fully insured for medical insurance, which includes mental health, but there's also third-party liability insurance for homestay included in that as well.
And just a supplemental there with the homestay, have we increased our relationship with homestays since a recent suspension hearing that involved a homestay student that I know we all felt awful about, that I just think we didn't support him enough?
All right, so I just want to make sure that we don't move into territory that's privileged, Trustee Swan. So I would think before I let an answer go on that, I'd ask that if you have a question, please work that through with the director and Mr. Mills, Superintendent Mills.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tim, and we'll look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move on now to one of our regular school presentations and invite Superintendent Edwards to introduce our first school.
Thank you, Chair Petersman. It's my privilege to invite Principal Dean Fournier and Vice Principal Diane Stroud to present the RTATE audit presentation. We conducted the audit at RTATE about 3 weeks ago, so it was a very quick turnaround. It was an excellent audit, and as you'll see, many questions came through. We had 3 different groups of students. Were interviewed by 3 different superintendents, or Sarah Crawford as well. And one of the comments that came through that has not come through in any other audits that I've conducted was the kids were all saying, "We love math." And when you take a look and perhaps hear some of their story, RTATE has been involved with the hubs for the last 3.5 years. And through the collaborative choir, they really built on their understanding of student learning and classroom instruction, and have paid particular attention to the growth and the building of the teacher skills with regards to teaching of math. So I'll invite Dean to start the presentation.
Thank you very much. RTATE Mackenzie is located in Almont in the township of Mississippi Mills in Ward 1 with Trustee McRae. We have about 380 students, 22 teachers, about 8 support staff, and about 85% of our enrollment our students are enrolled in French immersion. This is our second year as a JK to 6 school, and our first year with everyday learning in kindergarten. As I mentioned, we offer French immersion in JK to 6 and a regular program in grades 1 to 6. I've had the honor of being the principal there for the past 4 years, and we've been fortunate enough to have Diane Stroud as our vice principal for the past 2 years. When Superintendent Edwards called me to ask me about the audit, I was very excited because I wanted the story to be told about the great things happening at RTATE. So I hope you enjoy it. We have 3 main goals in our school success plan. The first one is about communication. Communication is something that we're always trying to improve. We have recently completed a parent survey, which you'll hear me talk about throughout the report tonight. We had about 127 responses, and many identified communication as a strength of our school. And of course, some identified it as a place we also needed to improve. The top 2 ways that parents want to be communicated to or by is via email and Facebook. There were also some requests from parents to have more face-to-face contact with teachers, such as an interview day. Of course, we use Facebook, and we have an average of 300 to 400 viewings per item posted. In the past year, we had a success story that had over 3,000 likes, which was a good news story of a boy cutting his hair and donating it to make wigs for cancer patients. Posting things like the lost and found items and posting our public speaking videos have been also very popular, and the parents have loved that. Many staff also have their own class page as well. And we've recently added a Twitter account also. And we've also addressed those parents who aren't in touch with technology, and we have about 10 families we've identified, and we do supply a paper copy of information to be sent home with them. Our second goal is about wellness. We want to build a cohesive school community who works, plays, and learns together. We've created a very caring, character-rich school environment at RTATE. Staff go above and beyond duties every day, inside and outside of school. An example of that is buying shoes out of their own money for students who don't have indoor shoes. A few years ago, when I went to RTATE, we started a program called Mentoring That Matters. It was an informal program where adults in the building identified some kids who need a little extra attention paid to them. This program has dissolved in the past couple of years, And I'm pleased to say that, in the sense that it's now a way of life at our Tate, embedded in the daily practice of our staff. Another example that we're using for wellness at our school is a program called How Full Is Your Bucket? This is a program where students are kind of caught doing acts of kindness, and it's really created a common language that we can converse with the students with, and they can converse with one another also. Also addressing another philosophy that we've adopted with some of our behavior challenge students. All students behave if they can. I've taken this philosophy from a book by Dr. Ross Green called Lost at School, and it's about collaborative problem solving. Basically what happens is we identify the skills that are lagging with those students, and we actually teach those lagging skills so that they have a better opportunity in class. This has actually also transformed how we conduct our student success team meetings and how we talk about kids. We've actually changed our SST form to reflect this, and the team identifies these lagging skills to help these students. As many of you know, lots of schools do school culture scans. We do ours twice a year. Our recent one in the spring, 100% of our staff feel that we place a moderate to high degree of importance on the well-being of staff. This is an increase of over 30% since our fall culture scan. Both the fall and the spring scans show that 100% of our staff put a high degree of importance on the well-being of students as well. A staff quote from that culture scan: "The students with behavioral special needs are treated with respect and caring no matter what the behavior. We look where the behavior comes from, past the behavior, to see the child himself or herself." With regard to staff wellness, again, we've created a really trusting environment such that the staff feel more comfortable in talking about their own mental well-being with us. A staff quote as part of the culture scan to support that: "I like the way the breakfast program has brought the staff and students together in an informal setting." I'll talk more about the breakfast program in a minute. Our third goal has to do with educational programs. And we've got lots of examples to demonstrate this I want to share with you because we're really proud of that. A few years ago, actually a long time ago, I was in a workshop on comprehensive literacy, and Gwen Babcock from the Limestone District School Board said to us that you need to see the whites of a child's eyes to be able to teach them how to read. We've taken that literally this year, and we've developed some multi-grade, multi-class guided reading groups for our grade 1s, 2s, and 3s, where students come together with similar reading abilities to develop these reading skills. This has been very successful, and staff are very excited with the results we've seen so far in the past 6 months. This came about after we looked at some of our initial reading results in our primary division and showed that need was there. Guided reading isn't new in schools. The approach we've taken, we think, is very courageous, and we've also identified that this happens every day. We make it happen. Also, for some of our really at-risk students, we've developed a sound skills program. In conversation with our speech language pathologist, we are the only school she's aware of that's doing this. It's an early intervention program for students who are really struggling with reading. It involves a pre-test, some intervention strategies such as using some software, Peer Builder, Sentence Master, Clicker 5, and also using other phonic activities. For next year, we've also enrolled in Empower, which is a Tier 3 reading program I'm sure you've heard about throughout the board. And improving reading skills will be continue to be a focus for us for next year as well. With writing, we have developed and working on continuums. The staff have worked really hard with their students to develop rubrics, identifying where they fit on the continuum, and students have done a great job identifying their writing strengths and areas where they need some more experiences. As Mrs. Edwards has mentioned, math has been a huge focus for us this year, the last couple of years actually, and more information is coming on that. For educational programs, a culture scan results indicates that 90% of teachers feel that all students will learn and that they must take responsibility for all students learning at high standards. This really indicates that staff are holding themselves accountable for the students' learning, which we're really proud of. Another staff quote is, I like the way the school is moving together in the same direction. We have 3 little pictures to demonstrate some examples in our success plan. The first picture on the left is an example of a guided reading group. Again, this is multi-grade groups that are happening in the morning and in the afternoon with our classes, and basically it's all hands on deck in order to have these small groupings. We're working intensively with those struggling readers that are at the pre-reading level as well, and also with those students who are above reading level.
The center picture is a student in our school who's identified as a gifted student. And programming for gifted students is difficult when you only have one in your building. But what we did this year was we paired ourselves with another school in the Upper Canada Board in Perth, Ontario, Queen Elizabeth, with another little guy who's gifted there. And through technology, this little guy at our school and their little guy have been collaborating on projects. So this one is through the iPad with FaceTime, and here you can see our young man, he loves Minecraft, and he's taken Minecraft from the virtual world and he's showing his friend Queenie what it would look like in our physical world.
The third picture, as I mentioned, is about our breakfast program. We recently received back in March a $9,000 grant from Food for Thought, and we're serving between 50 and 100 kids every morning breakfast, and this is happening because of volunteers from staff and a few community volunteers as well. Let's talk about some EQO results. On the screen, we presently have our grade 3, or our primary division reading and writing results. You can see that we are quite proud of our results. In grade 3, in reading and writing, we are above the board average and we are above the provincial average. In grade 6, you can also see that we are achieving quite well, and that we are once again above the board average and above the provincial average. And here are results for math. You can see that by in grade 6, our students are, there's evidence there that the students are learning and building their conceptual understanding of math. What's happening with our grade 3 results?
So we looked at our grade 3 results and realized we needed to put some effort into there. But at the beginning of the year, the hubs for the board focused on grade 6. So that's where we had to start. But it didn't take too long for our grade 6 teachers to jump on board with the inquiry model of teaching math. And they shared it with the grade 5 and the 4 teachers. So by Christmas, it was more focus was put into the primary division, specifically grade 3 and a grade 2 teacher. So we spent time with them, teaching them what targeted math capacity looks like. We focused on the inquiry model, pulled out the manipulative so that we could show them how they were to be used, got the kids using them, looked at strategies. The teachers were focusing on building anchor charts, using the student voice and the student strategies. Basically, too, what we did was we took them out of the textbook and took them into the curriculum. And that was a big move for our teachers, but they've jumped on board. So we're working at the 3-part lesson, hearing the student voice, collecting data during group or independent work. And for those students who need more experience at the grade 2 and 3 level, we did a focused math group and gave them more experience. So we did a junior survey as well this year, and on the junior survey, it indicated that the subject area that they feel they were learning the most in was math. So we're really proud of that across our junior grades and moving it down into our primary.
Also, this time of year when you're handing out assignments for next year, and when a grade 3 teacher came into my office a few weeks ago to get her assignment, I told her she was teaching grade 3 again next year. And she said, "Oh, good. I get to start the year using all the strategies." So we were quite happy with the enthusiasm that she had with that. I mentioned we did do a parent survey, and because the results were pretty clear, I wanted to share some of the comments with them. The first comment I won't read to you. I know you have the copy of it, but it's basically about how we are supporting our special needs students. The second comment is talking about how caring our staff are. We're very proud of that. And the third comment is really recognizing the student voice. Students come with an idea for a club. They want to do a sports club. They want to do a beading club. They come to me and I say, "Great idea," and they already know they have to have a staff sponsor. I've got so-and-so to supervise the club, and so the students' voice is being heard, and they're having lots of fun with those clubs. Some more quotes from the parent survey. It's children focused, we're proud of that. We're using lots of technology, lots of resources have been spent on that over the last 4 years. And a reflection on how much we're working with our Dr. Ross Green and our behavior challenges by that parent, how it's improved over the years. And this last quote I really want to bring to your attention. My child enjoys going to school. He must be doing something right. I just wanted to mention that I think we're doing lots right. Not only does the child enjoy coming to school, but they're also performing really well on our EQAO results, and we think it's a very safe and caring environment. But where are we heading next? Because we're ready to move on. We want to continue our math journey and having all staff, students, and parents fully engaged. That's one piece we want to work on for next year, is engaging our parents. We talked about having some student-led math nights and posting some videos on Facebook to explain to the parents how we're teaching math. We want to do more promotion of our school and develop more community partnerships. We have a great partnership with the Leonard Kennedy Support Services, who do all the shopping for our breakfast program, and also they bake all our muffins for our snack program. We also have a great partnership with the Almont Daycare, who use a room in our building for before and after. We want to continue to build the French culture in our school. We presently, this year, have added morning announcements in French. We're adding some French signage throughout the school, and one of our teachers prepared a French video for the reel-to-reel competition or festival, and we were one of only 2 French submissions at the festival. And of course, we want to continue to focus on our engaging our students in a safe, caring learning environment. We're very proud of our journey we've been on for the past few years, and the groundwork has been established for even further development. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Trustee McMillan.
Through you, Chair, just 2 questions. One, Dean, can you go back? There was something you said, it's not, I don't see it in here, but you made that statement about 90% of your staff believes all kids can learn. Can you go back to that for a second?
Yes.
Can you
So this
repeat
was
that?
a result from our culture scan.
Yes.
And it's 90% of teachers feel that all students will learn, and that they must take the responsibility for the student learning.
Okay, so I'm going to pick on that for a second. Because you've got 21 staff members. So if you do the math, that's about 2 teachers on your staff who don't believe that. And I have big concerns that we have anyone in our system who doesn't believe that all kids can learn. So that's just, I'm just saying that. I understand what you're getting at, but I just, okay. Second question. I applaud you what you're doing with the math. Your reading scores are great. However, and most schools would love to have these, but what are you doing to take them to an even higher level? Is this reading kind of put to the side because math, or explain to us what you're doing to make these good scores even stronger in reading?
Go ahead. Through you, Chair. Our guided reading groups, which we're having in the morning and in the afternoon, because we have blended kids, so some kids have English in the morning, some have them in the afternoon. During our guided reading groups, we're not only working with those students who are struggling in reading, we're also having daily guided reading groups with those students who are even above level in reading. So we're not putting it to the side, and we're stretching those students. We're trying to incorporate the writing into the reading as well, and those students are also blossoming and furthering their levels as well.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you.
Trustee Carpenter.
For you, Chair, thank you for the presentation. It sounds like it's an exciting place to be. I haven't been to that school, and maybe someday I'll get there. I noticed that in the audit, the recommendations were to expand your French involvement in the school, the French culture, and I see that you have it in your next steps. you have any ideas right now, or is that still being thought about as to how you're going to do that?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, we actually have a team. All of our French teachers are on in our PLC groups, and they are brainstorming. We've thought of things like a French arts night, which we've done in the past. We aren't doing it this year. We've done things with the signage we want to incorporate more. We're presently looking at enhancing our resources as well, and I'm working with the French staff on that to incorporate some more reading materials and writing materials for our group.
Thank you.
Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. I apologize, I stepped out for a few minutes, but there's something that I saw in the audit that I'd like you to expand on for me. There's something listed here called Lost at School. You just, the bullet points give me some information, but could you expand on that for me?
Sure. Lost at School is a book by Dr. Ross Green. It's basically about collaborative problem solving. So what we are doing right now is students who are having some behavioral challenges, we are working with that child and our student success team, and we're identifying any lagging skills. For example, how to be a good friend, how to improve their social skills. So what we actually have is a lot of schools used to have detention halls, and you'll probably notice that the same students are in the detention hall every day. What we've done is we've taken some staff, we have an EA and a teacher, and every day at recess we have social skills groups in order to work on those skills, on those lagging skills. So there may be a group of little girls who aren't getting along over here. There may be two boys who had a little bit of a disagreement on the yard about Pokemon cards. And our staff are working with them in small groups to improve those lagging skills.
Go ahead.
So you've got or there's a point in here about 3 suspensions this year. How long have you been using this methodology, this process, and have you seen, is 3 a good number, I guess?
Yeah, and actually, sorry, through you, Chair. Actually, those 3 were pretty extreme cases where they actually hit staff, and we have to draw the line in the sand somewhere. And I would say that our numbers have gone down over the last 2 years. We started this last September, so about almost 2 full years now doing it. And it's not only the fact that our suspensions may have gone down, but we're giving the kids more tools in their toolbox to be able to deal with the problems.
Go ahead.
Not that 3 is good, I just want to clarify that, but I caught myself after I said it. That's good, I appreciate that. In the audit as well, there are some comments about your communication goal, actually, and you have it in your PowerPoint. But in your communication goal, it talks about an email distribution list and website and those kinds of things. I think it's good. You need to make sure that you communicate with your community, but I'd like you to consider not putting a lot of energy in that, considering we may have some tools for you in the very near future from a board level that will allow your staff to communicate with parents very easily, will allow you to communicate with your entire school system very easily, probably in the neighborhood of similar to what a high school would be able to do today. So I encourage you to continue to build links for communication. Don't spend a lot of energy, and perhaps we can bring you up to speed at a later point. I want the focus to be on what you're doing well so far. And just one other point, Trustee McMillan had made a comment about staff, and there's one comment in here from a parent that they just wanted to have more classroom involvement, as most aren't aware of the opportunity to do so. So, like, in the line of communication, are you getting feedback in that sense that some parents are engaged, but other parents just don't know how they can be engaged or what involvement they can take?
Go ahead.
Actually, yes. In our parent survey that was sent out and returned, as I said, many parents identified it one of our strengths, but there were a few parents who identified it as a needs improvement area. I think we're always continually striving to improve our communication, and yes, I think I thank you for that advice. That there's many different ways of communicating, and I don't think we have it perfect yet. And I know I've talked to Jeremy about the parent portal already, numerous times with that conversation, and we're looking forward to that coming out too.
I think some of the initiatives that you're trying to take, the parent portal will help some of those.
Yeah.
Office 365 will help some of those.
Absolutely.
And I think it leads into what you're trying to do. So that's why I encourage you not to spend a lot of energy. Hopefully we can, light a fire under Mr. Hobbs. He doesn't seem to have a lot of things to do, so we can get some of those things done sooner. I think it's good what you're doing. I like the initiative on the. I lost the name of it already. The Dr. Green.
Yes. Lost at school.
Yeah, lost at school. I think that's an important piece because sometimes those things are overlooked and we concentrate on a lot of other things, and it all leads into it. So I applaud you for that. It's good. I also wanted to comment. It appears, I don't see the cohort, but I've done a little bit of the reverse math here, and it looks like your grade 3 students have improved as they've moved into grade 6, both in reading, writing, or all three, I guess, but in reading, writing, and math. So you've made some good progress with students from grade 3 to grade 6. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
Trustee Buckland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I just have a comment on the presentation. I like the principal, vice principal coordination.
You mean our outfits, you mean?
Your second point of future challenges, the community partnerships. I'd like you to elaborate on that. I'm not sure if it's intra-community or inter-community. Is it looking at fundraising? Is it the school out or community in?
Through your chair? I think a partnership to me is when both benefit. And when I say both, I mean the school and whoever we're partnering with. And the example that we're doing right now is with the Atlantic County Support Services, which is a group of developmentally challenged adults. And they get to go out twice a week into the community to shop for our breakfast program. So they're learning how to do some budgeting, how to identify some healthy food groups, follow our list. And it's saving our staff a lot of time, because when we're serving 50 to 100 students, that's a lot of food. That's a lot of toast, a lot of bagels, a lot of fruit that we're serving. So it's certainly, to me, a partnership is when both benefit, and we'll be striving to increase that as much as we can. We don't have any identified right now, but we're always looking for other opportunities.
More bagels. Thank you.
Yes.
Trustee McAllister?
No question.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Trustee McCray?
Well, first of all, congratulations, Dean and Diane, on a wonderful presentation. This is the first one I've heard from Ward 1, so I'm happy to be here this evening to hear that. I think over the last 4 years there have been big improvements at our Tate under your leadership, and I'm so impressed by what you're doing in math to move that forward. I'm also was very impressed at the family of schools the other evening when you shared with us how you were able to get this grant for the food program for our students. I think that your scans are very positive, that you have been able to collect from your parents and from your teachers. And as you move forward with these next steps, because Dean is now going to be moving on to Perth District Collegiate Institute, I'm hoping that you will flush these out a little more clearly, a little more succinct in terms of what some of the expectations might be that would fall under some of these areas for Paul Leroy, who's going to be the next principal, so that we continue on that venue to move upwards and onwards and forward, and we just don't.
That's right.
One place. So I hope that you will take that opportunity before you leave to really flush that out for him, so that he's got that grounding when he comes forward.
Through you, Chair?
Yep, go ahead.
Actually, I've already forwarded the presentation of the audit results to Paul, and we already had some meetings set up already, so we're looking for some great transitions between, and of course Diane will be staying there, and she has a great knowledge in the math area and has been working extremely well at our school. So
Great, and good luck in your new post.
thank you.
Trust, I think I got everybody. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and talking about your school.
Thank you for having us.
All right, Mr. Coombs, I want to introduce our next guest.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. It's my privilege to introduce Jeff Campbell, principal of Rockland Secondary School, 7 to 12. And I would point out, it's also my privilege to be the one to introduce the last audit that will be brought forward to this table for this year. I'd like to comment just briefly on this journey we've made this year. Yeah, it's been a great learning experience for the administrators who have been a part of these audits. Each one has said that it has been a time of reflection, certainly an opportunity to look deeper at some issues that they have perhaps not had the time to do before, as well as celebrating the good things that have been happening. I also want to point out for myself and my colleagues, it has been tremendous learning for us as superintendents and senior team. It's been a tremendous opportunity for us to get to know our schools and our administrators better. And I'd just like to comment briefly as I was, I present the draft copy of audits to staff. So last Thursday I was at Rockland and I was presenting this draft copy, and I always say at the end of it, now if you think I've forgotten something, or if you think I've missed the boat on something, or there's something you'd like me to turn the volume up on, please feel free to stay afterwards, or better yet, email me some personal comments. I've yet to have anybody take me up on that until Rockland. And I received several emails from Rockland staff members, all very positive, all thanking me for coming to talk to them, but also saying, you know what we need to do? We need to go deeper. And one teacher I'd like to quote said, you talk to a number of students, you need to talk to our students who are not necessarily honored by our system. You need to go to the students who maybe won't say nice things about us, but their voice is really important to be heard as well. And I thought that was really terrific for that staff member to bring that forward. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Jeff Campbell, principal of Rockland, and here to bring some information about another 7 to 12 school in a very diverse and changing community.
Thank you, David.
Floor is yours.
We want to try it. For those of you that haven't had a chance to be out at Rockland District High School, it's a 7 to 12 school. It's their second year as a 7 to 12 school, and I'm very privileged to have been the principal there for now my second year. I'm very blessed to have a very talented vice principal, Mary Lynn Wilcox, and we're a great team at Rockland. Rockland is a growing town. It's a very francophone town, and English is the English language is a minority in the town of Rockland. So our primary feeder schools are Rockland Public School, which is next door, and Plantagenet Public School. We currently have a total of 430 students, grades 7 to 12, and our student body consists of 311 secondary students and 120 intermediate students. We have a staff of about 47 teachers and educational assistants, and a social worker and a nurse. A social worker from Valoris that is full-time at Rockland, and a nurse that comes in on Thursday. I chose to include a sort of a satellite photograph of our school area, and you'll see that just down St. Joseph Boulevard, there are probably about 6 or 7 schools in that little cluster. What's really powerful, I think, it says a lot about our school, is we don't only receive students from our feeder schools, Plantagenet and Rockland Public, but we've also been able to capture a lot of students from the separate board. And there's some stats there that show you that this year we were able to capture net 8 students from our intermediate separate schools in the area, and another 10 students from the secondary schools in the area. So that's 18 students that have chosen to come from our coterminous separate board to Rockland District High School. I think that's a very positive trend. That's net. So we look at students that have come in and then students that have left. What's really positive about our school success plan is all stakeholders have had a hand in creating it. That school success plan is posted in numerous locations throughout the school.
Our parents have had a voice in creating it. Our staff has had a voice in creating it, and so have our students. We really wanted to take a look at literacy. Literacy was our challenge moving forward from the past, and our goal was to try to see a 10% increase in literacy results from the previous year. Very, very pleased with the work that our literacy team has done. In literacy, our whole staff marked the literacy mock tests early in the year. What we had a chance to do was identify some areas where students needed some support, and we're very pleased with the work that the group did to offer support there. We also decided as a group that we wanted to create a strong culture of accountability to ensure that all students would succeed at Rockland. The RDHS community will also experience an increase in their sense of belonging as a part of the school community. So these were the three goals as a group that we decided to work on, and I'm going to show you some and share with you some statistics regarding how well we did. We're very, very pleased with the different programs that we offer at Rockland District High School. As you can see in the graphic there, we're a composite school. We offer programming for all. Very pleased with our Specialist High Skills major program. We have a total of 18 students that are involved in the program, and last year we noticed a 50% attainment rate, so half of those students had their red seal. The other remaining students are in grade 11, and we hope to see them be able to go on and get their red seal as well. I've got a very positive story to share about our program in the co-op sector. We have a Michelangelo student that we thought we would lose this year, and we were able to get him involved in EPS Motors in co-op. And he is going to be on track to get all of his credits. And the real positive thing is EPS Motors has partnered with the school and with him, so that he's actually going back this summer to pick up some extra courses on his way to an apprenticeship program. So we're really delighted to see that our community folks have partnered with us that way. We have a number of students that are developmentally delayed and are autistic, and they're involved in our system designated class. What's very powerful is these students have an opportunity to get involved in regular programming, and they're in the system designated class for half the day to receive support with life skills. We have also allocated 2 sections for student success at Rockland District High School each semester, and we've got staff that that take the lead for our 7 and 8 students to help support them, our junior students 9 and 10, and our 11 and 12 students. So we have lead folks that have taken a role in being ambassadors for the students and checking regularly to see that they're getting across the line. We're very, very delighted to see that our graduation rate is trending in a positive line. 3 years ago, we were at 82%. The year before last at 86%, and last year we're at 89%. A lot of that has to do with the work that our team have done to track students very, very closely. There are no surprises when we have our promotion meetings. We meet once a week, and we're a very dedicated team to ensure that we're doing whatever we can to support those students that from time to time are into crisis or are not getting their credits. This is a little bit of information from Tell Them From Me survey that we had students complete. It's always a challenge to motivate students at the secondary level. And at this point, the Canadian norm for motivation is 30% of the students tend to show interest and motivation in school. What we noticed across the board from 7 to 12 was that the students at Rockland indicated that they were interested and motivated. So that was encouraging to see. I know that our move is to, what can we do further to capture that other 50% of the kids? But that was very positive data that we had seen. We wanted to get a chance to have a look at the stakeholder voice. So we, in our Tell Them From Me survey, we received some very positive results about our students. 76% of our students believe that education will benefit them personally and economically, and will have a strong bearing on their future. So that was very positive to us, that kids valued education and saw that it would be important. We had an opportunity this year to partner with Sarah Crawford and the research team to pilot for the parent survey, and some of the statistics that we saw regarding what parents were saying about Rockland District High School were very positive. 82% of our parents believe that staff demonstrate commitment to serving the needs of their needs. 84% feel comfortable about approaching school staff with any questions that they have, and 88% believe that their child is showing evidence of developing critical thinking skills. So those were some very positive indicators that we saw the parents were saying about Rockland. In the culture scan collected from staff, 90% believe that they place a strong importance on students' well-being, that our staff feel that way. 82% believe that their current definition of student engagement is when students are focused on solving a problem while constructing meaning and relevance in their world. So that critical thinking piece, that staff look to see that that's when students are engaged. There's an interesting comment made by a parent that refers to inclusion. If a family moved into our school's attendance area with school-age children, 94% of parents would recommend Rockland District High School. We thought that was a very powerful statement. And we were really delighted to hear that in our community living program, having students integrated in regular classes for half the day has been very positive, very powerful. The literacy story at Rockland has been very positive. This past year, we saw a 19% increase in our literacy scores, largely due to the work that our team has put forth in terms of supporting students who are at risk. And if you take a look at the pie graph here, we can see that there's real value added. 27% of the students rose to standard. So what that means is students that hadn't written the grade 10 literacy test prior to that were at level either 1 or 2. They hadn't met provincial standard. So there was some value added in being part of Rockland, where they were now successful on the literacy test. So very pleased with our results. The graph that you see here is represents what we've seen with mathematics in grade 9 over the past 4 years, applied and in academic. And if you look to the graph on the left, those are the results for applied mathematics, and we can see here that Rockland traditionally in the last 4 years has been a very powerful force in mathematics. We're well above the provincial average for applied and for academic as well. Our math teachers are very dedicated. They keep the library open at lunch to give tutorials for kids, and it shows in the results we see. So I've talked about all the great things, and I think we have a few warts that we want to talk about, and some areas that we need to work on. Of course, we want to improve our graduation rate, and we want to get our OSSLT rate up to 90%. Some of the latest statistics and information that we had from the audit when David was in, parents have said that they would like to see more direct communication take place between teachers and students directly, or teachers and parents directly. We've got a wonderful website, we've got a wonderful webpage, but we don't have a lot of teachers that are sending direct emails home to parents, that are using an electronic platform directly to communicate with parents. We have a few that are doing it. We have one science teacher that does it, that posts upcoming tests, review sheets on a platform that parents can access. We have, he communicates on a regular basis with students and parents. So here's what's happening next week. Here's what's going on down the road. Here's a course outline. That's a very positive thing happening. We don't see it happening with a lot of teachers. And I think our desired state is to get the majority of the staff doing that. And that's something we've had discussions about. I know that in earlier discussions that we observed here, it'd be great to have Jeremy come into the school and share with staff some positive platforms and some positive good news stories of how we can use that the technology in that way to get staff to communicate better with parents. The other piece that's an area of growth at Rockland, we see pockets of very great work around differentiation and differentiated assessment. What we would like to see is improvement in other areas where some of our senior academic teachers are not relying on sole paper pencil tests all the time. We're using a cross-section of differentiation strategies to assess student learning. We're giving students multiple ways to demonstrate their learning. And so those are really two of the key areas that we need to work on at Rockland. I think that'll get us to the next level in terms of communication and student success. So our plan of action, and really in the three areas that we have there, we want to try to work to developing a positive platform for students and staff or teachers to communicate electronically with staff. So we want to, again, update our website and do a better job at social media. That online teacher platform to communicate directly with parents and students. I think it would be great to have staff showcase their success stories. And you want to try to change the culture where teachers are sharing with colleagues that, well, here's something that's really positive, that's taking place. It's working for me to better communicate with kids and parents, you know, and it helps minimize the extra work that has to be done. Let's say a student's absent for a rugby game or is out for arts night. They're when they return to school, they can easily access something that's been posted on the platform for them. We want to. One of the challenges that we've seen now that came out in the audit, we want to expand collaboration between grade 7 and 8 teachers and our high school staff. So that's something that I think we can leverage and try to help support differentiation at Rockland. And staff development to support differentiation, bring in some experts and share best practices so that we can get teachers to move forward. Some really powerful work, and we've already started on that collaboration. The last few literacy hubs, we've had groups of intermediate staff work with secondary staff to look at student data. They pulled out the OSRs. We're going back to grade 3 and 6 results, and we're looking to see what we need to do to help support kids to see success moving forward. We had a total of 8 teachers, and it was just awesome. It was 4 intermediate, 4 secondary teachers working all day in the hub, and we're starting to see that energy move forward to the rest of the staff. So I believe that that'll be a way that we can leverage and get our OSSLT results better than 90, and as well to support differentiation at Rockland. when David had a chance to come in and meet me for the audit, he talked about the 10 or 11 critical policies and procedures that the board has. And he asked, Jeff, is there any way, are there any of those policies that you could look at that you believe there could be a little bit of work on? And do you want to speak to that, Dave, at all, or do you want me to just continue? Or, yeah.
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
If you're, one of the things we do and we've been doing with our audits is looking at some of those policies and procedures and seeing, are we compliant, or is there some way we can dig in a little bit deeper? So I asked Jeff for some evidence regarding some of these policies, and I listed some of the top ones. And Jeff came back and said, we've been talking with our staff. We believe these 3 top policies are something that we need to look at and perhaps tighten up for next year.
Yeah. And so the safe arrival policy, one being, we want to update our staff handbook so that parents and all stakeholders are aware of the policies that we're using. And of course, a lot of our stakeholders want to know about fundraising, so we want to have a chat with them in advance to help support that. Our code of conduct hasn't been reviewed probably in about 4 or 5 years, and we'd like to put some real effort into bringing the character always piece into it. With school council and other stakeholders, and also take a look at the bringing in expectations for all stakeholders, parents, visitors to the school, and have that forefront and center on our code of conduct. So that's sort of a summary of where we are at Rockland right now.
Okay, Trustee McMillan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff, for that presentation. There's obvious, to me, there's a lot of good things happening in Rockland, and I commend you on speaking about the areas of concerns and what you guys are doing. I want to go back to a slide that you had that's called Students Are Interested and Motivated in Their Learning. And I'm disappointed, not surprised, but I'm disappointed that the Canadian norm as 30% of students are interested and motivated. That's a scary number. And 50%, it's nice, but you and I, I'm sure, would agree that that's not good, that only half our kids are motivated. When you look at the school audit, student voice comes out and basically makes it very clear, and it's not unique to your school. It seems to be coming out in a lot of the high school audits with student voice, that this filling up the bucket, writing the test, emptying the bucket, filling it up again, write the test, empty the bucket, forget what you do. I call it death by rote. You learn it, you spit it back out, you forget it, you do it again. And the student voice is making it very clear that could well be one of the factors why they're not buying into what's happening in our schools. It's very easy to sit and try to point fingers, but I don't think pointing fingers is the answer on this. This is a shared responsibility of all of us, including the students. How, and you touched on this a little bit, but I'd like you to go a little deeper. I'm sure this has been mentioned during the audit. I'm sure you've talked about this at the school. How are you, as a school, going to work to try to improve this 50% and address the concerns that were coming out in the student voice in terms of just simply memorizing information, writing a test, and then doing it again? What steps are you taking as a staff to address that concern?
Go ahead, you can try to answer that succinct question.
That's an interesting question, and I believe it's a cultural shift we have to make. I think if you look at what's happening in a lot of the high schools today, we need to, there are pockets of really good work that's taking place around differentiation and engaging kids. If I look at Rockland, for example, and I see what is happening in certain positive pockets where kids get passionate about their learning. One example being a student has a chance to go to a medical lab at Queen's University and then come back and do work in the classroom very closely linked to what's happening instead of copying down and memorizing notes. That's powerful. When you look at some of the other opportunities where kids get to get their hands immersed and do instead of sit and listen, I think that's powerful. And we have to take a serious look at it as a staff. We have to sit down and talk about exactly that. 30% of kids in Canada are not motivated. Half of our kids aren't motivated. What do we need to do? It's a tricky question, but I think the conversation has to start at the school level, and we have to look and we have to start to share best practices about who's doing something special that we can share, and how are we. I look at our civics careers folks and what they're doing around getting to understand student learning styles, and the kids will actually do a survey, and they'll get an output on the survey that says, here's how I learn best, right? And I think we need to start looking at learning styles, and we need to start looking at meeting the learning styles of all of these kids. But it has to be a conversation at the school, and I don't think there's a silver bullet that we can just, right? I think it's something that we have to acknowledge and we have to get to work on.
Through you, Chair. Thank you very much for getting to the essence of what my question was. You seem to pick it up much quicker than the Chair. Thank you.
I didn't say I didn't get the question. It was the lack of succinctness that I was questioning. Trustee Buckland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions and maybe a third, which is motivated from something you said and should probably thrust out to the universe. One that you mentioned, just a question about specialist high skills and the co-op. Could someone in specialist high skills also benefit from co-op as a credit?
Through you, Chair, yes, they can. And in fact, to obtain your accreditation for specialist high skills major, you need to have a certain number of co-op credits. Okay, so they're one and the same, but we see that the students that are involved in the specialist high skills major also are able to take advantage of the different certifications that are linked to their co-op experience. So it's been very positive that we've seen for the students that have been through it. And our particular specialty is health and wellness.
My second question was from one of your challenges and leads me to ask, you look at the elementary, secondary coordination. Are teacher unions showing creative leadership in this, or are they blocking us or leading us?
Through you, Chair. That's a good question. We are getting better this year. Last year was a difficult year for us in terms of it was our first year as a 7 to 12 school, and it's like two families coming into a new building, right, or sharing a new spot. There's a little bit of territorialism that happened. I think we had to iron out, how to share, how to work together. We've seen, and I know David, when he had a chance to talk with people, and you'll see it in some of the responses from the audit, you'll see that we've moved leaps and bounds this year. I don't believe that they have been overtly, you're talking about the federations, have been overtly derailing that at Rockland this year. We've been very fortunate to have people we're not there yet. Like, if here's our original state, we're moving, we've moved, we still need to move. But there are challenges in terms of supervisions being different in different collective agreements and so on and so forth. But we've seen some movement, and I think there's just been some real grassroots coming together with folks for the benefit of kids.
Thank you. That's encouraging. And the last one is when I think of the BYOD, Mr. Chairman, if I could go with the third question.
Yep. Go ahead.
And the multi-levels of ability in a classroom, very, very difficult situations. And you mentioned ways of improving efficacy and differentiation of teaching in multi-level ability classrooms. I'd like to know some specifics. So you mentioned guest lectures. So give me a name of a guest lecture, or best practices. Where could we go? Or a book, so I can do some bedtime reading on this. I'm quite interested in this issue. And maybe others in the group, Mr. Chairman, would have some thoughts on this.
Through you, Chair, I'd like to share one thing that we're doing next year to work with our multi-needs kids, and it's linked to literacy. we're inviting the Empower program to come into Rockland, and that's through 6 Kids in Toronto, and they are going to work with 2 of our LRCs, both intermediate and secondary. And what they plan to do is help, and these are research-based reading strategies to help support some of our multi-needs kids that are smart, but have a challenge in terms of a learning disability to better read. So they're coming in, they'll train our staff who will work with probably about 9 of these students in our multi-needs class, and hopefully that will be one way that we can support them. Is that what you were looking for? Through the chair? Yeah. That's one example of how we're trying to bring in some resources to support our kids and to support our staff.
Good work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Trustee McPherson.
Looking at your third slide here, through the chair, I noticed a fair amount of green space between the 3 schools and 1 cinder oval. Is there a degree of cooperation between the 3 schools in using some of that green space for everyone's benefit?
Go ahead.
Through you, Chair. When you say the green space, I just want clarification about that. Are you talking about the fields in the area?
I'm looking at the track facility mainly, but there's only 1 track and there's 3 schools. Is it a shared facility? There's a degree of cooperation.
So, through you, Chair, there is a degree of cooperation between ourselves and Rockland Public.
Okay.
And we work with the local community groups like UCLC Soccer, and I know there's a community rugby as well. So there's quite a level of cooperation, and the fields are well sought after. So, but with our coterminous partners, we haven't really, that might be something we can explore, but currently we work with our feeder schools and our community groups.
Good point, Bill.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, sorry. Trustee Karkner. Guess I better write this down.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Jeff, I've been into your school a fair amount, attending parent councils, and I'm quite impressed with the way your parents are involved and they're very concerned about the communication, and I'm pleased to see that that's one of your priorities, is to continue that, because they often hold up the example of the science teacher that does this, and hopefully by next year we'll hear more about other teachers that have picked up that same habit. I'm also pleased that the transition from 7 and 8s into your school has progressed. I believe that the students in the senior grades are much more accepting of these students, and I think if the staff has more collaboration, it's going to get even better. So pleased to hear that the hub involved both 7s and 8s and your senior staff. That was a comment I read in the audit, that they need to talk to each other and plan better. So I'm looking forward to seeing that happening at Rockland. And thank you for the presentation. He didn't mention anything about the sports and the arts programs going on, but also very active there. So
yeah,
good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair.
Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. Some really good points to the presentation, and I like that. I like the fact that you admitted to having warts and addressing those. I want to just go into slide 5 for a second. Slide 5 is your graduation rate. You've gone from 82, 86, 89. So we've got 11% to get to 100. I know our overall board goal is 90%. But, I think there needs to be an expectation that each school will do the best that it can. So there's 11% difference between where you are and 100%. My question is, if we move into the next slide, when you look at the culture scan, the 11% that we need to get from 89 to 100%, which 50% do you think they sit in? Do you think they sit in the kids who are interested and motivated, or the ones who aren't?
Go ahead.
Through you, Chair, definitely we've got to capture those kids that need to be interested and motivated. And for sure, our Michelangelo kids are in that section where they need an olive branch. They need someone to come forward and help them. And that's where we'll go to the 100%, to support those kids that are disengaged, that are part of our poverty challenge, and we need to do everything we can to help them.
Go ahead.
So, Trustee McMillan had pointed out that he's astonished by the Canadian norm, and as I am as well. But I throw the Canadian norm out, quite honestly, because we need to establish a target in Upper Canada. And if we really believe in 90% graduation, then we need to make sure that 100% of our students are motivated and satisfied. Because if it's anything less, then the 90% is very unattainable. It's not going to happen magically. So I want to ensure that strategies, or I guess have some assurances that strategies are in place to deal with the 50%. Because when I look at your desired state, you talk about your 90% graduation rate, but when I look at your plan of action, there's nothing built into the plan of action to help get to that 90%. You talk about OSSLT and improve communication, but not, I guess, nothing directly correlated to how you're going to get to 90%.
Through you, Chair. We need to look at, again, I think there's some mention there of differentiation. Like, it's a big piece here. I think it taps into all kinds of different areas. Like, I think we need to look at differentiation. We need to look at our Michelangelo kids, how we can support them, how we can support their families. What can our student success team do a little better? But exactly, I think we need to flesh it out as a staff and come up with a specific action plan. Okay, we're doing well, but we're not there yet, and we have to acknowledge that we're not there yet. So what do we need to do? And I think even if we pick 2 or 3 key areas that we need to look at as a staff to see what we can do to engage kids. And I think there's some really great best practices out there that we need to showcase. And I think we have to put it front row center when we talk with staff to say, we need to work together here and maybe put this on our school success plan. What do we do to get that from 50? Sure, it's better than the Canadian average, but you're exactly right. That we need to get kids engaged.
So I encourage you to do that, and I think if we've identified that and you admit to it, I think we need to make sure that it becomes part of your desired state and part of your plan moving forward. It may be embedded in some of those other things, and certainly there needs to be that concentration, in my view, to ensure that the other 50% are there. Slide 10, you have the OSSLT. I'm kind of off on your scale on the 3-year average. I don't know what that scale represents. You got 1, 10, and then 100. Are you trying?
So through you, Chair. I have the specific trending underneath that, so you can see that 09 we were at 80, 10 we were at 82, 11 74, 12 68. We had a tough year, and 13 back to 86. When you average it out, we're at provincial we're close to the provincial standard. So that's what the graph is meant to show, that we're up and down. I think we want to try to show that we're trending upwards, but the graph shows that over that average, we're at provincial standard. We're close to provincial standard.
Okay, well, that's a 3-year average, and I'm just not sure what 3 years you're using, and I'm not sure whether it's what you're at.
I think the last 3 years.
98%, if I do the last 3 years.
Yeah, that graph could be a little clearer.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
What? Sorry, I threw you, Chair.
I just want to go to the audit now, if I may, for a second. There needs to, or I guess I see a lot of repetitive or similar comments from staff and similar comments from students. And one that appears to be alarming is a lack of interest in sports teams, lack of interest in other teams. There's comments from students saying that teachers aren't engaging them enough. There appears to be a disconnect. Staff believe that students should be more engaged because of interest. Students aren't engaged because staff aren't engaging them. Am I reading that right, that there's a bit of a disconnect?
I think through you, Chair, there was some feedback that came back from the audit around students. We've got the students that were interviewed were high achievers, and I think the way I interpreted that data is they're having to make tough decisions about, I'm competing to get into university, but I'm having to let some sports go. That's how I interpreted some of that. It's a very competitive world out there. Some of these kids are taking senior calculus, senior physics, chemistry, and the problem being is that they've had to say no to some sports, whereas there's anxiety around the competitiveness of the world right now for these kids. That's how I interpreted it, when we had a chance to talk, Dave. So there's that anxiety, and we see it now with a lot of the kids in senior grades that are competing for university entrance and having to decide, well, I enjoy some sports, but something has to give here. And it's unfortunate, but you probably would see that as something across the board for kids that are on that path.
Superintendent Coombs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could add, it was very interesting that interview session went in a direction I didn't expect it to. The kids really wanted to talk about the anxiety of being an achiever and the expectation of that what they felt that was on them, not placed upon them necessarily by the school, but by their families and the community. They also felt a tremendous anxiety, and I went into this in some detail with the staff, an anxiety about the future, given the uncertainty of the economic job market. I had one student say to me, it used to be when I was younger, I used to think about what my passion was, and now I'm thinking about where can I just get a job. Other students said, I'd love to play sports, but I don't want to have crushing debt load when I finish. And we talked about that with the staff, saying, really talk to your students more about that. They're being prepared for university academically, and that certainly is your first job, but they're also experiencing a lot of anxiety. And I think, and I'm not saying that this is particular for Rockland, I'm seeing this more and more in other schools as well. As kids are saying the uncertainty, that, there used to be a time that if you went to university and you got a degree, you're going to get a great job. And I'm hearing back saying that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, and that the sand is shifting under our feet. So it was really an interesting line. I wish I had more time to spend with them. I think I spent about 3/4 of an hour, and it could have spent all afternoon. But it was it went in a direction totally that I didn't think it would.
Go ahead, and then Trustee Swan, I'll come to you in a minute.
It's interesting that I don't see that as a trend within the schools that are in the city of Cornwall, and I think even if it is a trend, perhaps there's an opportunity that you can make to engage those kids to understand that workloads will always be heavy, and you can find ways to make sure that things are achieved regardless of some of those stress. So it's a coping mechanism that needs to be built into the school. It just leads to me to kind of come into some of the other questions, I guess, or some of the other comments. You make comments and you've made suggestions about ensuring that there were teacher web pages or those kinds of things. And Office 365 will solve a lot of that. It'll be a tool. My fear is, will it be used? And promoting it, the advantages of having Office 365 is one step. But will it be used? Because when I read some of the student comments, I have a fear that you can develop a web page, you can use Office 365 as a tool to communicate, but I'm not sure that there's an engagement in that moving forward, based on some of the comments that I'm reading today. Am I reading that wrong?
Through you, Chair. I think you're absolutely right. I think we have, there's a culture shift that has to take place, and if the platform is there, we need to encourage people to use it, and we need to see people celebrating how it's made communication more efficient for kids. I agree.
Just to follow up, you made a comment that there was one, I think it was one teacher, or a couple, that were engaged doing something. I mean, doing something in the line of communication. Is that teacher looked at as a leader within the school? Were those teachers looked at as leaders within the school? Are they looked at as outcasts or outsiders or outliers? They're not the norm.
Through you, Chair, the individual that's having success with it is a leader, and we've actually had some discussions about how we can use his leadership to help leverage and celebrate the good things that he's seeing with the work that he's doing on the site, and bring more people into the tent. And I think that's a real positive way to change culture. If we can, tap into his leadership ability and say, well, folks, maybe he can take the lead on a PD session where here's what I'm doing. Here's how, first of all, it's a big time saver for me, but it's also making a difference in better communication with kids. Parents love it. So I see some potential there.
Trustee Swan?
Hi. My one congratulations is your web planning and web leaders not having to do written submissions, can do it on their own to empower the students in grade 7 or 8 that can be these leaders, and I congratulate you on that. My other question, though, is what are you doing to empower these students to be leaders in the senior grades?
Go ahead.
Through you, Chair, we a number of these. We run Link Crew right now as well, and our goal is to hopefully see a number of these young people become Link leaders. We also run a program called Beyond the Hurt, where a number of these students are involved in taking a leadership role through the Red Cross, through helping to promote positive behavior in the school, anti-bullying. So we see a real potential, and we're very fortunate because we actually have 3 trained web leaders at Rockland for next year. So it's a new initiative for us. There's already a real buzz around the school. The kids are excited. They actually had to apply to be and go through an interview to become web leaders next year. So
Sourcing that canoe.
Maybe I'll move on if that's okay, Chair.
I think you better. I really don't want to have to extend the meeting.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, this? Okay. So, carrying on, Chair. a couple of the recommendations from February the 26th we want to respond to tonight. One of them was, and I read, if there is to be the possibility of a realignment to permit the introduction of early French immersion at some schools or communities, the director be asked to develop a rubric or process to do so. And that's the bulk of our presentation tonight. There was an additional recommendation that read that the director present at the last May meeting a sequence of key result indicators and benchmark targets for the improvement of participation and support of French immersion in the Upper Canada District School Board schools, and we'll make a point to respond to that recommendation as well. Thank you. So one of the first things we did to develop the rubric or process, we're actually calling it a process, to respond to schools' interest in introducing French immersion, was to develop what we called an expert panel. We brought in a number of principals across our system with good knowledge and expertise in this area, namely Carmela Chaucho, John Gao, Nancy Hanna, our FSL program resource teacher, Julie Pollock, Susan Rudders, Way Westendorp, and Trevor Wheeler. We met with that group. It was towards the end of April. Thanks. You'll notice in your package we have a time chart that outlines week by week, month by month for next year how we see the process for French language reorganization moving forward. I'm just showing you that now for reference, but what we'd like to do is take you through the itemized timeline items in this process so that you have a deeper understanding how we would see schools apply for early immersion and move that forward through the year. I want to point out as a premise, one of the foundational components of this is the concept that really moving this forward, our schools need to see this as a family of schools issue, not just an individual school issue. And you'll see that as we explain this process to you. Because a school introducing early French immersion that isn't in that school right now obviously would impact the enrollments at other area schools. So we're moving this forward with that idea that it needs to be good communication, good collaboration between the families of schools. The other thing we're trying to impart upon our schools, and this is in the actual guidelines in front of this time chart, is the idea that introducing French immersion should be seen by our schools as more or less like opening a new school. There are a range of issues that need to be looked at to understand how we're meeting the needs of our students. And we want to impart upon our schools again that this is not something that should be taken lightly, and they want to take the necessary steps to make sure that it's done appropriately.
So I'm going to walk you through the steps and in the process for the French language reorganization, keeping in mind that this is elementary. So the first step is a general information session for interested school principals. That's prior to the last week of September, and general information session held for principals interested in the possibility of participating in this process. Step 2 is an expression of interest by the second week of October. Families of schools interested in having school introduce early immersion are asked to provide an expression of interest via letter or memorandum to the director's office. Step 3, they're combined there, but prior to the end of October, communication of the chair of the board and the trustees of this table and respective family of schools are provided by the director's office confirming approval to proceed in principle with the reorganization process. We had some discussion among the expert panel about fast and firm timelines versus open-ended, and after some debate it was determined that this is a long process, not a short process, and it's very important to initiate early in the year with the reasons which I will give in the next steps. In steps 5 and 6, background review and draft plan. So by mid-December, the applicant, family, and school principals will review the background information to develop a draft language instruction reorganization plan. And I'll let you read those, for example. And really, when you look at CREW, the communication, resources, educational programming, just overall, and the wellness within the school. Step 7 is the draft plan shared. The draft language plan reorganization is communicated and shared with assistance from trustees school councils and applicant family of schools. Step 8, the draft plan is approved. And the staffing process is quite fluid and it really never ends, but it really ramps up starting in February once allocations go out to school. So prior to that, with the allocations and the staffing process, by the end of January, confirmation to proceed with the introduction of early immersion at the applicant schools is forwarded by the Director's Office to the Board of Trustees and family of school principals. I mentioned in the previous slide about the staffing process from February through the end of the school year. The approved plan is applied to the annual staffing process. And step 10, schools introducing French early immersion will receive ongoing guidance and support from Teaching for Learning Program Department.
Thank you. With respect to the second recommendation, trustees will recall this really was in response to information that was provided as a part of the FSL final report, indicating that for our most recent information, we estimate about a 13% retention rate in students in the French immersion program. What I mean by that is looking at the number of students that actually complete their high school journey with the board with a French certificate compared to the number of students that actually entered into early French immersion in kindergarten. So I think it was in that tone that it was asked that we come back with a series of indicators that can be used to determine what our target would be for increasing that participation rate. What we're suggesting is we'd like to take a little more time really throughout next year to get a deeper understanding of the different things that impact student engagement in French as a second language. And from that, we feel that we could develop a more legitimate target. Right now, it would be a little loose to suggest that we know what that target should be without access to a bit more information, understanding what's driving the engagement decisions of students to retain in French. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Trustee McCray.
Through you, Chair. So I'm, the first part of this, which was your response to the first request put in by the board, which included the various steps. Where in those steps do you see determining the community's interest and need for the reorganization of French, of our French program, in regards to like a community forum or focus groups or anything like that? Where do we determine that?
Through you, Chair. We've made a point. You'll notice under step 2, the second paragraph I'll read. It says it's anticipated that expression of interest will be received primarily from families of schools with recognizable prior knowledge and community desire for the consideration of new school locations for early immersion. What we're suggesting there is that in the early days of this, particularly next year, we would expect to see an expression of interest from where there's already a level of discussion in our communities on this particular issue. But moving forward, again, there's going to be lots more information made available through our school principals to our communities about French immersion, and we would anticipate that we'll be able to respond accordingly when we're satisfied that this has been appropriately vented and understood throughout the community. But again, we'll have to wait and see as they come in how that aligns with the goals of the board.
Yeah, often, if I might, just in terms of the way that we've seen this process develop at schools that have expressed interest, it's usually sort of a combination of school interest and community interest, school council interest. And in bygone days, you used to end up with these surveys, and then they call the local trustee and try to leverage the program that way. So I think that the vision is that still would happen, that it would start off as sort of an organic discussion amongst the community, and a principal in tune with their community is going to pick up on that and then start the process. Anyway, follow up, Trustee McCray?
And to the second part, and I know you haven't done, you've alluded that, you've only begun in that area to do investigations. Any thought in how we will bolster our high school programs so our students continue on and graduate with their designation? Has there been any thought, like, at all given to that? Like,
It's kind of beyond the report, right?
I just wonder.
Director, do you have anything you want to add, or no?
So that'll come out after they've done their investigation. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Carter?
Have there been any schools come forward since this was discussed at the board table back in, that want to have it in September, that didn't have it before? French version?
Not for September.
It's through you, Chair.
Just 1 second, Trustee Swan. Go ahead.
We are aware of some interest in the RO community, and I think we've heard a bit of interest as well in the North Stormont community as well.
But that's not for this September, though. For the next September,
They
right?
go through this process. They'd have to go through this process.
Yes.
Yeah.
My apologies, yes.
Yeah. Trustee Swan?
And I have heard interest through the North Grenville community that they'd like it through their parent council, Chair, for this September. And to take the enrollment off of Campbell Public School and keep their kids in Oxford Mills. And to have Oxford Mills be one of the, not feeder schools, but one of the starting schools to start this process. So I have heard this, and I had reported that, so I can't remember too.
Trustee McAllister?
I'm pleased that the potential instructional reorganization is going to be seen in the context of a family of schools, because I think that's a necessary check and balance that will occur. I'm also puzzled, though, that there were 3 recommendations in this report that I see addresses primarily the third one, mainly. And maybe I've missed something, but I'm left wondering what the state of FSL is in Upper Canada at this time, and what we are doing to build capacity in areas such as PD for staff, to develop communication skills, or communication teaching skills, and to address the new ministry guidelines in FSL.
Through you, Chair.
Well, just before, I think we have to remember what we sent them away and asked them to do, just in terms of this particular report. We asked them to go off and look at setting up a process by which schools could add FSL, and at KR, some ideas around KRIs. So that wouldn't be in this report.
Then let me rephrase my question.
Okay.
The first recommendation is to report back on the progress of FSL plans provided to the Ministry of Education. Where does that stand?
Right now, what's happening with that particular piece is that the program department is looking after it now. I apologize, Ian's not here. I actually sent him home, he wasn't well. That continues to be the work in the program department as they interpret that new document that has come out. And there'll be a much more fulsome report on the academic piece of that. Because as the chair said, we were already trying to respond, and this one to what the communities are potentially asking for to put immersion, and also to clear up some misunderstanding about the whole aspect of bringing FI into a community. You're absolutely right. We wanted to, as you said earlier, is that we wanted to deal with the issue that one FI school in the community, what's its impact in 3 or 4 schools as you go through, and potentially an entire community. But John, we will take that, Val, and we'll take it back to the team. I know that we're working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Buckland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point in reference to our trustee asking about the follow-up into high school. Charlene, before immersion, had a very high rate of students leaving with the certification. So this is an area that could be used as an example to study. Two other points. One, the chairman just mentioned that the principal would be in tune with the community, would know the needs, and that's happened at RO. Why should it take 18 months to say you can have a program that you want and you seem to approve of, is the question. And then I have another one on finance.
Go ahead.
Through you, Chair. Perhaps I could bring to the attention of trustees the success we had this year with the changes that occurred in the Perth community when early French immersion was introduced at the Stewart School for this coming September. This process was mirrored somewhat on the success we had this year in rolling out that process. Again, it was an opportunity for us to bring the principals from the respective schools together, give them the information that they were looking for so that it could be presented in and considered in a variety of models, because really what was happening at one school would impact another school. So we wanted to ensure that adequate opportunity was provided to strategize, to understand the enrollment and other implications by adding these programs in, so that it could be looked at and understood by all of the schools in that respective community, and adding on to that the necessary communication time to ensure that parents were aware of the changes and that their needs and concerns could be addressed as specifically as possible.
Through you, Chair.
Just 1 second, Trustee Swan. Go ahead, Trustee Buckland.
All right. I'd like to move to the funding. Now, Director McDonald has the figures. They were given to us at the last OPSBA trustees meeting, that the federal government is transferring to Ontario Education for Second Language $2 billion in the next 5 years. So one concern is that if we're waiting to submit a plan, perhaps the money has already been allotted. But more concerning than that was that the previous multi-year allotment by the federal government, I asked about this in the winter. We must congratulate our sister Catholic board. They apparently were much more aggressive, and in the allotment they received, with half our population, 2/3 of $1 million more for their French programming plan than our plan received. So I'm interested in how much money we've been allotted for our FSL programming. Anyone have that?
You know, guys, like I'm sorry I'm having to jump in here and refocus us, but Trustee Buckland, that's just not germane to the agenda item. And
well, I question that, Mr. Chairman, because surely programming and financing are related.
Well, but the EFI program is funded through a line in the GSNs, correct? It's not tied to applications for funding or anything else. That the so it is an enrollment-based line. So it's driven by the number of students that enroll in the EFI.
Okay, I'll accept that. And
So.
I'll follow it up.
Okay. All right. Trustee Swan.
Was this document sent out to the principals is my first question, through you, Chair.
Was it sent to, sorry?
To the principals.
No, we requested it, so it's here first.
Okay, and my secondary question would be, I would like Oxford Middle School to be one of the schools to be started out with this early French immersion. It's so close to Ottawa, it's Kempville, it's everywhere. We'll keep the enrollment down, and I've had parents call. So I don't know how I do this or what I do here, but there's been a need, there's been phone calls to me, and they're right outside of Kempville, they're in the Ottawa area, and they aren't getting the French immersion, and the other school's overpopulated. Our new school's going to take 3 years.
Okay, I think that I would suggest that you talk with the school council and your principal.
family schools principals, that's what's gonna be brought into this. You're gonna have the other families of schools. You're gonna have Merrickville, Oxford and Rideau, Campville, South Branch, and related schools to that particular piece. They've got to come together and talk about the family of schools.
Thank you very much, David and Greg.
Okay, so are we done with this item? Anything else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. And we got 2 minutes to do the rest of the agenda. Okay, let's move now to E47, and there's just a little bit of confusion around this, and you now have the plan in front of you. I'm going to try to expedite this. No, there's no motion. It was just to update us on the plan. So the plan is laid out in the attached document. Letter of concern from the Ministry of Education and whatnot. Do we need to discuss it? Do you want to go through the plan in more detail? David, you're already implementing. Reverse planning.
Could have given you a list.
It's good. Anything? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Dawes.
Thank you, Chair.
Motion to move back into the regular board meeting. Trustee McMillan and Trustee McPherson. Sorry. Yes, right. Okay. Everybody just cast their ballots. Anybody opposed? Okay, that carries. All right, report from private session. Let's get this started. The last committee of the whole meeting, during private session, we had a couple contractual items, 2 personnel items, and 2 property matters. One of the recommendations was brought forward on the 28th, and we have 2 motions this evening coming out of the private session. So the first motion with regard to a 10-year contract between the Upper Canada District School Board and Bell Canada, moved by Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee Carpenter, that the Upper Canada District School Board approve a 10-year contract between Upper Canada District School Board and Bell Canada for wide area network services. Okay, go ahead and cast your vote. Anybody opposed? Trustee Swan is opposed. All others in favor. Second motion moved by Trustee Swan, seconded by Trustee Swan. You want to move the second motion, which is to convey the land to municipality of North Grenville?
Yes, please.
Moved by Trustee Swan, seconded by Trustee McDonald, that the Upper Canada District School Board convey to the municipality of North Grenville the value of $1 portion of land and concession road in front of North Grenville District High School and South Branch Public School abutting municipal lands for the purposes of a sidewalk. Go ahead and cast your vote. And I'm going to do the motion to extend. Trustee McDonald. You have anything?
I have stuff to report, but it could be the next meeting.
How long is it going to take?
60 minutes? No. 15.
All right, never mind. You're not going to get to do it. All right, can I have a motion to extend for 5 minutes? Moved by Trustee McCray, second by Trustee McMillan. Okay, report from Committee of the Whole Public Session. There are 4 presentations, 1 discussion item, shared on May 28th. We have 1 motion. Moved by Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee McAllister, that the Upper Canada District School Board request the Audit Committee to monitor the high-risk policies to report to the board during the annual report, in addition to conduct an annual review of the high-risk policies. Any comments or questions? Okay, call the question, please. Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, Trustee McDonald, we will most definitely get your report in before the end of the month because we have to. Remarks from the Director and Chair. What? Sorry?
The accountability framework update.
Yeah, we're postponing it. And remarks from Director and Chair. I have just a quick comment. I want to thank the whole North Dundas community for stepping up and delivering 108 not. Thank Mr. The Director and his wife and our communication team for coming up to handle all the media. There wasn't any. So I thank you, everybody. I think that the community did well and demonstrated the character of all involved. Do you have anything to add?
I just I thought the kids were magnificent. I did the first one on myself with a young girl who had come in, and she was more frightened than I was, and I said it's not that tough, and we worked it together, and it worked out really well. I then addressed the kids, as you know, and took a bit of a cheap shot from my wife. She said, "Never missed an opportunity." The microphone. I told the kids I was very proud of them because they moved through and they were absolutely fabulous. But I would like to, with your permission, to bring your attention that one of our occasional teachers, a very strong teacher, Mrs. Chapman, their board, gives a great deal to the North Granville community. She's known as a leader in that community. Tragically, on Sunday afternoon, while riding her bike with her husband and a group of other people, her husband was run over. Our critics and response team was at the school doing everything we could. They have 3 sons, and they all have gone through our Kempville and then through North Granville, and we have 1 young man who's still there in grade 12. The other boys have moved on into university. But our hearts go out to this tragic situation. A very loved father, and I know that North Granville is responding in a very positive way. On another note, and Peter's aware of this, tragically, a young girl who was in perhaps Value will say a few words. A young girl who graduated from CCBS last year, one of our First Nations ladies, was fighting leukemia for the last several years, and she succumbed to cancer over this weekend. And our critics and response team is working with the community and with the First Nation Akwesasne group to make sure that they understand that our deep care in this difficult time. So, somber notes, but it's the reality that we have that in both situations our critical and response team has responded magnificently.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Trustee McMillan, Trustee McPherson. Anybody opposed? Everybody in favor? All right, thanks everyone. We'll be back here.